Chapter 263. You do have some skills, but with your strength, you'll be chased out of the top floor. The waiter thought to himself and didn't care about what had happened before. He got up and brushed the dust off his body. After wiping the blood from his mouth, he minded his own business. As for the others on the first floor, they did not care. Or rather, they were already used to it. After all, the Tianhuang Tavern was full of people. Anything could happen there. Walking up the stairs to the second floor, Zhao Mujio did not stop and continued going up. However, at that moment, an extremely arrogant voice came from a corner on the second floor. How dare you go up to the third floor? Don't you think it's embarrassing? After those words, many people laughed. Some people agreed with him, their words full of mockery and contempt. Jiangchen did not care and wanted to continue going up. However, Zhao Mujio did not think so. He paused for a moment, as if he was thinking about something. After a few breaths, Zhao Mujio turned around and walked to a corner on the second floor. There was a young man in white sitting there. The word "Bai" was embroidered on his robe. He was from the White Emperor City. What are you going to do? Jiangchen asked. Someone wants to die. I want to satisfy him, Zhao Mujio said. Monks don't lie. Jiangchen was speechless. Monks don't kill either, right? You want to kill people so easily? Is that really the style of a monk? However, Zhao Mujio thought that Zhao Mujio was drunk all day long. He was probably not a proper monk. What? You want to cause trouble? At that moment, the young man in the corner stood up and looked at Zhao Mujio. He said disdainfully, You're just a monk who drinks meat and drinks wine. What can you do? Even I don't know what I'm capable of. Zhao Mujio frowned and stared at the young man. But I know that I'm definitely more capable than you. What a joke. You seem to be joking. The young man looked at him with contempt. However, before he could finish, Zhao Mujio threw his wine gourd at him. Boom! Accompanied by an explosion, the wine gourd seemed to explode, and a powerful spiritual force burst out from it. Spiritual energy mixed with Buddhist light, holy and peaceful. However, compared to morning and evening wine's ferocious face, the holiness of the Buddhist light seemed out of place. You dare to hit me? Haven't you heard of White Emperor City? This young man was also quite impressive. His entire body emitted a layer of white mist that isolated the Buddhist light outside his body. It also dispersed the spiritual power that erupted from the wine gourd. White Emperor City! Zhao Mujio was taken aback. Jiangchen, who was next to him, also blinked. He thought to himself that he had hit one of his own people. Since he's from White Emperor City, then we won't fight, Morning Wine said softly. He waved his hand, and the shattered gourd returned to its original state. Then Zhao Mujio picked up his wine gourd and led Jiangchen to the third floor. However, even though Zhao Mujio had given up, the other party did not. He punched out with a majestic aura. His fist was like a long dragon as it headed straight for Morning Wine's back. Morning Wine did not turn around. He only replied with a confused and threw his wine gourd out. This time, the wine gourd exploded. Streams of spiritual energy dispersed the other party's fist. Then, the Buddhist light shone and turned into a golden dragon. Like a chain, it bound the young man from White Emperor City. Finally, Morning Wine waved his hand and threw the young man out of the window on the second floor. Since you're from White Emperor City, I'll spare your life, Morning Wine said softly. Then, he looked at the others on the second floor and asked, We'll go to the third floor. Does anyone have any objections? At this moment, the entire second floor fell silent. Not a single sound could be heard. This was because those who could sit on the second floor were all of similar strength. If Morning Wine could easily defeat the young man from White Emperor City, it meant that he could easily defeat them too. Therefore, who would dare to disagree? However, in this world, there were only a few people who were willing to stand out. Or rather, they did not know how to spell the word death. Of course you can go to the third floor, but I'm afraid the one beside you is not qualified. A young man sitting by the window glanced at Jiang Chen and said, "You're only in the venerable realm. You don't even have the right to go to the second floor. You want to go to the third floor?" Hearing this, Morning Wine looked at Jiang Chen. His turbid eyes flashed with a cold light. "You'll deal with it yourself?" Jiang Chen shrugged indifferently and said, "It's fine. Don't worry about it." With that, Jiang Chen continued walking to the third floor. "Monk, if you bring him to the third floor, we won't dare to say anything. However, even if you go to the third floor, you'll be thrown out," the young man sitting by the window said in a low voice. "And the one beside you will not only be thrown out, but he'll also be heavily injured and carried away." "How annoying!" "Indeed." At that moment, Jiang Chen and Morning Wine both frowned. Then, Jiang Chen's figure disappeared and appeared in front of the young man in the blink of an eye. "I'm telling you now that we're going to the top floor, not the third floor." Jiang Chen stared at him and said seriously, "Also, even without this drunkard monk, no one can stop me if I want to go to the top floor." Boom! As soon as he finished speaking, Jiang Chen threw his palm over and sent him flying. He fell through the window and out of the tavern. The young man fainted. "Hiss! Is this still the strength of an venerable realm cultivator? Monster!" At that moment, everyone shut up. No one dared to stand out. Moreover, when these people looked at Jiang Chen, their eyes were not only filled with confusion, but also fear. They were afraid of Jiang Chen's strength. At the same time, they were guessing which sect Jiang Chen belonged to. Qianzuan sect, Jiang Chen. Jiang Chen seemed to know what these people were thinking. He cleared his throat involuntarily and spoke in a loud voice. With that, he walked up the stairs with Morning and Evening Wine. The group of people on the second floor looked at each other. Many of them had never heard of the Qianzuan sect. After all, the Qianzuan sect had declined a long time ago. Very few people in this generation knew about the Qianzuan sect. Could it be the Qianzuan sect that suppressed the martial pavilion 3,000 years ago? That's impossible. That sect has declined. How could they nurture such a disciple? Finally, someone remembered. However, they didn't believe that Jiang Chen was from the Qianzuan sect. At that moment, Jiang Chen and Morning Wine had just arrived at the entrance of the third floor when they saw a bald monk waiting there. "What's wrong? Are you blocking the way again?" Jiang Chen raised his eyebrows. "I was wondering why it took so much effort to go to the top floor." "He's not blocking the way. He's looking for me." He looked at the bald monk, and a complicated look flashed in his eyes. He said softly, "Senior brother." Chapter 264. "Go back with me and receive the punishment of the commandment," the bald monk said coldly. "Oh, so it's your family matter." Jiang Chen was relieved and said, "Then I'll go up first. Come to the top floor when you're done." "Okay." Chao Mujio nodded. Then, Jiang Chen continued to move forward, and no one on the third floor stopped him. When Jiang Chen reached the fourth floor, a series of explosions came from the third floor. At the same time, the array and enchantment of the entire tavern were activated. "Someone is fighting in the tavern! The third floor! 2 monks are fighting! They're fighting with their lives!" Some people were screaming, some were exclaiming, and some were just watching the show. Jiang Chen looked at the third floor through the staircase. He only saw the Buddha's light rippling, but he didn't see Chao Mujio. "It's none of my business," Jiang Chen said softly. After all, it was a matter between Chao Mujio and Chao Mujio. As an outsider, he couldn't interfere. Moreover, with Chao Mujio's strength, if he couldn't deal with Chao Mujio, even Jiang Chen couldn't do anything to him. In that case, he might as well ignore it. Supremacy realm? Are you kidding me? Brat, is the fourth floor a place where you can come? Get down! At that moment, the people on the fourth floor saw Jiang Chen, and they immediately scolded and mocked him. Jiang Chen touched his ears, pretended not to hear them, and continued to move forward. However, before he could take 2 steps, a fist radiance and a palm print came at him like a dragon and a tiger. "Do I have to fight my way up to the top floor?" Jiang Chun was puzzled. He raised his hand and shadowed the fist's radiance and palm print. What Jiang Chun didn't know was that if ordinary people wanted to go to the top floor, they would have to fight their way there. Only those famous elites could walk up to the top floor without moving an inch. How dare you! All of you, stop! How dare you touch my brother? Do you want to die? At that moment, 2 angry shouts came from the window on the 4th floor. Then, young Lord Qin and young Lord Luo walked over to Jiang Chun with smiles on their faces. Big brother, long time no see. I've missed you. Big brother, you also came to participate in the Young Desolation meeting? What a coincidence! Do you want to sit together? Jiang Chun was also surprised. He did not expect to meet these 2 living treasures here. No, I'm going to the top floor, Jiang Chun said. To see the world. Do you guys want to come? As soon as he said that, young Lord Qin and young Lord Luo looked a little embarrassed. Although their statuses were high, one was the young master of the 800 miles Black River and the other was the young master of the Bank of the World. However, with their abilities, they could not even enter the private rooms, let alone the top floor. Boss, we can't go in. That's right, above the 4th floor is the private room. You can only go to the top floor after passing the private room. The 2 of them were embarrassed. They also knew their own capabilities. For a moment, they stood on the spot, not knowing what to do. As for the other people on the 4th floor, they could not help but be curious when they saw the 2 young lords showing such an attitude and appearance to Jiang Chun. Even the person who attacked earlier widened his eyes. He secretly wondered what kind of background Jiang Chun had to make the 2 young lords call him big brother so humbly. The people who came to participate in the Young Desolation meeting came from all the major regions of the barren state. The barren state was vast and there were many living beings. Only the top monstrous geniuses would be familiar to people. As for people like Jiang Chen, they were only famous in the top 10 academies. As for the Martial Pavilion and the Jiang family, they naturally would not promote Jiang Chun. After all, they had always been at a disadvantage in Jiang Chen's hands. Therefore, in the Tianhuang Tavern, basically no one knew Jiang Chun. Who are the people on the top floor? Jiang Chun asked. The most powerful group of geniuses in the barren state. Young Lord Chen said. Young Lord Chen said, if those people don't die prematurely, the barren state will be their world in the future. Yes, the strongest monstrous geniuses of the various major heritages, sects, and family forces are all gathered on the top floor. Young Lord Luo explained. It's like this every time the Young Baron meeting is held. Every time the Young Baron meeting is held, these strongest monstrous geniuses will all come to the Tianhuang Tavern. They will meet in advance to find out each other's background and strength. The strongest group of geniuses in the barren state? Jiang Chun said softly with a calm expression. Got it. With that, Jiang Chun stood up and walked towards the private room. At that moment, Chao Wine caught up with him with a wine pot. There were some holes in his kasaya, and there was blood dripping from his forehead. He was clearly injured. Where's your senior brother? Jiang Chun asked curiously. Do you still have to risk your life between brothers? He's dead. Chao Wine took a sip of wine and said, Our paths are different. Jiang Chun was stunned. He did not expect Chao Wine to be so ruthless. He actually killed his senior brother in the Tianhuang Tavern. Didn't Buddhism have a commandment that forbade killing? Then what was going on with Chao Wine? He was drinking and killing. Was he really a Buddhist? My path is great freedom. It's different from my fellow disciples, Chao Wine said. Morning Wine said. Whatever they think and do, they want to force it on me. I want to resist. No one can shake the path in my heart. If someone wants to, I'll be a demon. Chao Wine sighed. However, I've always thought that I'm a Buddhist. Upon hearing this, Jiang Chun fell silent. He didn't know what to say. He did not know much about Buddhism and did not know what the Buddhist principles were. However, Jiang Chun had seen many people. He could tell that Chao Wine was not a bad person. He was just very casual. Perhaps casual was the great freedom that Chao Wine mentioned. You're not a disciple of the Billow Academy, are you? Jiang Chen asked. Yes, I'm a disciple of Little Tianzhu in the West Continent. Chao Muwai nodded and said, They couldn't tolerate me, but they didn't want to let me go. They wanted to use the so-called Buddhist Dharma to save me, so I ran away. You're also a person with a story, Jiang Chen said. While they were talking, Jiang Chen and Chao Muwai had already arrived at the private room. There were very few people in the private room. There were only 20 to 30 people. However, the people there all exuded an extremely powerful aura. There was also a sense of arrogance between their brows that ordinary people did not have. When this group of people saw Jiang Chen and Chao Muwai, they did not say anything. However, these people's gazes were fixed on Jiang Chen and morning and evening wine. You're able to reach the private room with such a cultivation level. It seems that you're quite capable. The Shaohuang Association is a gathering of prodigies and monsters. We can't be careless, and we can't act rashly. Bear with it first. We'll find out more about them. Many people in the private room had the same thought. However, to their surprise, after Jiang Chen and Chao Muwai entered the private room, they turned a corner, followed the stairs, and continued to advance. Suddenly, some people could not sit still. That was because the people sitting in the private room were not able to enter the top floor. If Jiang Chen and Chao Muwai entered the top floor, wouldn't that mean that Jiang Chen and Chao Muwai were stronger than them? Those who could enter the private room were all proud people. Who would be willing to admit defeat? Except for those on the top floor. Chapter 265. Stop! Who's there? Immediately, a few voices were heard. It was hard to tell what they meant. They were calm. However, Jiang Chen's senses were very sharp. He smelled the scent of war. Billow Academy, Chao Mujio said. I want to go to the top floor. Do you have any objections? As soon as he said that, the people who spoke before immediately shut up. That was because the name Chao Mujio was extremely famous among the same generation in the barren state. Of course, Jiang Chen didn't know how famous Chao Mujio was. So it's Chao Mujio. We don't have any objections. I've heard of your name for a long time. It's an honor to meet you today. Many people spoke. After a few words of flattery, they didn't say much. Chao Mujio didn't care. He carried his wine pot and walked toward the top floor in drunken steps. Jiang Chen naturally followed him. However, before Jiang Chen could take a few steps, he saw a wine cup turn into a flash of lightning and shoot toward him. Chao Mujio can go to the top floor, but you can't. You want to go to the top floor as an honorable? What do you want us to think? Faced with these voices, Jiang Chen couldn't help but stop. He turned around and returned to the private room. Chao Mujio frowned and looked at Jiang Chen. He seemed to be asking Jiang Chen what he meant. Was he going to fight? You go up. I won't go to the top floor. Jiang Chen smiled faintly and said, I'm only an honorable. I don't have the right to go to the top floor. You should have the right. Chao Mujio wasn't sure. He only knew that Jiang Chen was very strong, but he didn't know how strong he was exactly. Of course, Chao Mujio thought that he could bring Jiang Chen to the top floor. No need. I'll just sit in the private room. Jiang Chen smiled and waved at Chao Mujio. Go to the top floor. If you find anything, remember to share it with me. I'll wait for you here. Okay. Chao Mujio nodded, then ignored Jiang Chen and walked up to the top floor. Boom! A few breaths later, sounds of fighting could be heard coming from the top floor as soon as the morning and evening wine entered. However, the sounds of fighting continued for a very short time. After a dozen breaths, it stopped. At the same time, he didn't see morning and evening wine coming from the top floor. It was obvious that morning and evening wine had a firm foothold on the top floor. At the same time, Jiang Chen was standing in the middle of the private room. Everyone's eyes were on him. Among them, there was even a pretty woman sitting by the window. She was blinking her pretty eyes and looking at Jiang Chen with a smile. Have you been cultivating well during this period? Jiang Chen ignored everyone's gazes and walked to the woman's side. Finally, he sat down. In an instant, the surrounding people's faces turned even uglier. After I returned to White Emperor City, I've been working hard on my cultivation, the woman said with a smile. This person was Bai Fingyu. White Emperor City had a deep foundation, and Bai Fingyu was the only descendant of White Emperor City. Therefore, after Bai Fingyu returned to White Emperor City, she enjoyed abundant cultivation resources. Now, her cultivation realm had surpassed Jiangchen, and she had reached the lower heaven realm. Bai Fingyu had the great moon's sacred body. In addition, Jiangchen had imparted her martial skills and cultivation techniques. She was indeed qualified to sit in the private room. It was because Jiangchen had seen Bai Fingyu that he had decided to stay. What kind of Tom, Dick, and Harry wants to climb up the social ladder? Do you know who she is? She's the daughter of White Emperor City's White Emperor City. Who do you think you are? Are you qualified to sit with her? Disdain and mockery could be heard all around. There was also a tinge of jealousy. It was obvious that with Bai Fingyu's appearance, no matter where she went, people would drool over her. She's my disciple, Jiangchen said. However, after these words were said, everyone was astonished, and they did not believe it. However, Bai Fingyu's eyes were filled with resentment. Master, when can I be like Hua Liani? Bai Fingyu's face turned red and the resentment in her heart became even stronger. Bai Fingyu was Jiangchen's first disciple. However, until now, she had not done anything with Jiangchen. Instead, it was Hua Liani, this little disciple, who had slept with Jiangchen the moment she arrived. Bai Fingyu's heart was filled with hatred. If she had known that her master was so easy to sleep with, she would have slept with him earlier. Cough cough, stop fooling around. That was all Mianchang is doing. Jiangchen's face also turned red. He flicked Bai Fingyu's forehead and asked, Do you know where Jianglu went? I'm not sure. He suddenly disappeared. Bai Fingyu shook her head and said, He sent a few letters saying that he's fine and asked us not to worry. And if that's the case... Jiangchen heaved a sigh of relief. During this period of time, he had not been able to contact Jianglu, and he was extremely worried. However, before he could finish his words, a wine cup shot through the air and went straight for Jiangchen's face. This was a slap to Jiangchen's face. It was a show of strength. Kacha! However, before this wine cup landed in front of Jiangchen, a layer of white fog suddenly rose up. Cold air wantonly and frost condensed as if it was frozen in the air. That wine cup was frozen in the air and did not even land on the ground. At the same time, a trace of sharpness flashed across Bai Fingyu's eyes and a layer of cold frost spread out from her body. Even her pupils had turned as white as snow. Don't misunderstand. I'm protecting all of you, Bai Fingyu said coldly. Don't do anything to my master. Otherwise, if he wants to kill, no one here can stop him. Princess Bai, is this person really your master? White Emperor City has a deep foundation and there are many famous masters. Why would you let him be your master? His cultivation level is not even as high as yours. Hearing Bai Fingyu admit it personally, the group of people exclaimed and were puzzled. However, without waiting for Bai Fingyu's explanation, Jiangchen had already stood up. He looked at a young man in the corner and said coldly, What do you want? This young man was the one who threw the wine cup. When he heard Jiangchen's words, he stood up on the spot and asked, What do you want? What do I want? Jiangchen raised his eyebrows and slowly stretched out his hand. The air in front of him distorted and a talisman appeared in his palm. The talisman was like a swastika character. It flickered with divine light and emitted rays of Buddhist light. Cross you, Jiangchen said softly. With a wave of his hand, the swastika character talisman emitted Buddhist light and instantly enveloped the young man's body. In an instant, the young man's expression turned sluggish and the light in his eyes dissipated. It was as if he had lost his mind. Buddha says, Seeing me is like seeing an ancestor. You should worship me. Jiangchen shouted loudly. As soon as he finished speaking, the young man bent his knees and knelt down under the shocked gazes of the crowd. Buddha says there is no door here. Jiangchen spoke again. This time, the young man stood up with a wooden expression. He stepped up and left the place directly. Chapter 266. This is a Buddhist martial arts technique. Delivering all living beings from torment? Everyone exclaimed in shock. They were even more fearful. Buddhist martial arts techniques had always been focused on delivering people from torment. Once they were delivered, they would either enter Buddhism, become a demon, or become a walking corpse. This group of people were all monstrous prodigies. They could tell that Jiangchen had already shown mercy. Otherwise, that move alone would be enough to make that young man become a demon. Or even a demon. Master, everyone here has a high status. What you're doing? Bai Fengyu was a little worried. After all, those who could enter the elegant room could be ranked among the top in the barren state in terms of strength and status. Status? Is my status not high enough? Jiangchen said sarcastically. Stroking his chin, he murmured, With my status, I don't think anyone here is a match for me, am I right? What was Jiangchen's status now? Thinking about it carefully, it was a little scary. Sect leader of the reverent sect was one of the statuses. Of course, it was also the lowest status now. However, a disciple of the Below Academy had a very high status. Moreover, Jiangchen was also Elder Qing's in-name disciple. Although he was just an in-name disciple and not a real disciple, that was the status. Putting aside Elder Qing, Ancestor Qing also thought highly of Jiangchen. Although Jiangchen had never seen Ancestor Qing before, Jiangchen believed that if something really happened to him, Ancestor Qing would definitely step in if Elder Qing could not resolve the situation. As for his other identities, Jiangchen was a little vague. Even he was not sure. For example, his relationship with Nian Chang'e led to his relationship with the Skirich Temple. There was also Heaven and Earth Pavilion. Jiangchen did not believe that Heaven and Earth Pavilion did not have any thoughts about him. In fact, Jiangchen was certain that as long as he nodded, Heaven and Earth Pavilion would take him in as a disciple. With his multiple identities, how many of the youths in the private room could compare to him? Moreover, in this world, although status was important, strength was even more important. Jiangchen did not think too much about the top-level monsters on the top floor. But for the group of youths in the private room, Jiangchen could say without exaggeration that he could kill them with one punch. Who exactly are you? You know the Buddhist sect's martial techniques and are also Princess Bai's master. Your identity is truly hard to guess. Someone spoke, as if asking a question. At the same time, some people stood up and locked their gazes on Jiangchen. Their eyes were filled with hostility. Looking carefully, the people who stood up were all wearing the same robes. They were disciples of Fire Cloud Mountain. Fire Cloud Mountain was as famous as the White Sovereign City and had been on good terms with the White Sovereign City for generations. According to legend, Fire Cloud Mountain only had one descendant, a male. Originally, Fire Cloud Mountain and White Emperor City were going to form a marriage alliance and join forces to stabilize their positions in the godless continent. But who would have thought that Jiangchen would appear now? Furthermore, Fire Cloud Mountain had received news not long ago that the White Sovereign did not seem to agree to the marriage alliance between Fire Cloud Mountain and White Sovereign City. It was said that it was because of a young man. How could this group of Fire Cloud Mountain disciples not understand the significance of all this? Princess Bai, the marriage alliance between White Sovereign City and Fire Cloud Mountain was destroyed because of him? This person's cultivation is low and he has no identity. Princess Bai, you have to think carefully. At that moment, the disciples of Fire Cloud Mountain spoke up. Not only were they reminding Bai Fengyu, but they were also warning Jiangchen not to provoke Fire Cloud Mountain. As for Jiangchen, he had never offended the Mount Fire Cloud, and he didn't want to go against them. But now that things had come to this, was Jiangchen going to give up on Bai Fengyu? Even if he gave up, would Bai Fengyu agree? What is the relationship between Fire Cloud Mountain and White Sovereign City? What does the marriage alliance have to do with me? Jiangchen said in a deep voice. Also, don't talk about identity. In terms of identity, what are you in front of me? You don't even have the qualifications to be on equal footing with me, Jiang Chen said coldly. In his previous life, he was a divine king. In this life, he had many identities. Jiang Chen's identity was not something an ordinary person could compare to. I know who you are. You are the abandoned son of the Jiang family, Jiang Chen. Suddenly, one of the disciples from Fire Cloud Mountain spoke up. With a disdainful expression, he said, "Just an abandoned pawn." Jiang Chen's expression suddenly became calm and indifferent. He even nodded lightly. His appearance and attitude caused Bai Feng Yu's body to tremble in fear. She tiptoed and quietly left the pavilion. Boom! Boom! Just as Bai Feng Yu left the pavilion, a series of explosions came from within. Immediately after, screams and curses were heard. More than 10 breaths later, someone saw a few youths being thrown out of the pavilion's window. They were covered in blood and their cultivation was crippled. These youths were precisely the disciples of Fire Cloud Mountain. The Heaven Wasteland Tavern is really lively today. At the same time, at the entrance of the Heaven Wasteland Tavern, a youth in a golden robe with a crown on his head was about to enter. Unexpectedly, he was almost hit by the disciples of Fire Cloud Mountain. Your Highness, the Heaven Wasteland Tavern has always been lively. Beside the youth, a fat middle-aged man said with a smile, and your arrival will make the Heaven Wasteland Tavern even livelier. Pang Ming, I like how you flatter me shamelessly. The youth smiled and patted Pang Ming's shoulder. Good luck. I have high hopes for you. Yes, Your Highness. Pang Ming hurriedly nodded and walked in front of the youth, opening a path for him. Who is so bold to cripple the disciples of my Fire Cloud Mountain? At the same time, a furious roar came from the top floor. As the voice sounded, someone saw a fire cloud condensing in the sky above the Heaven Wasteland Tavern. It carried a majestic aura and a scorching aura, as though it was deep in a sea of fire. Young Master of Fire Cloud Mountain, Tuoba Yen! It's said that he has the Nether Fire Dao Soul and is very strong. He can definitely be ranked in the top 50 of the Desolate Roll. He can probably enter the top 30. Many people exclaimed. They could tell that the fire cloud was the doing of Tuoba Yen, the young master of Fire Cloud Mountain. So what if he's crippled? Jiang Chen stood in the pavilion and looked up at the ceiling with narrowed eyes. In his eyes, the brilliance of the sun and moon shone. It was as though he could see through the ceiling and see the scenery in the top floor. Arrogant, Tuoba Yen said coldly. Unfortunately, someone who can't even reach the top floor has no right to be arrogant. He has the right. Before Jiang Chen could say anything, Morning Wine's voice sounded from the top floor. Then, they heard Morning Wine and Tuoba Yen cursing and mocking each other. A few breaths later, explosions sounded from the top floor as the sounds of fighting boomed like thunder. Jiang Chen did not head to the top floor. Instead, he sat quietly by the window in the pavilion with narrowed eyes, as though he was taking a nap. Chapter 267. Bai Feng Yu returned and sat opposite Jiang Chen. He smiled and said, Aren't you afraid of empty fire cloud's revenge? I'm not even afraid of Martial Pavilion. Why would I be afraid of empty fire cloud? Jiang Chen curled his lips. Besides, I have White Emperor City. Humph! Bai Feng Yu was arrogant, but he still told Jiang Chen with certainty that White Emperor City would definitely stand on Jiang Chen's side. Monk Jiaomu! You're courting death! After a dozen breaths, Tuoba Yan's angry roar came from the top floor. However, just as he finished speaking, Jiang Chen saw a young man in a red robe fall from the top floor's window. He slid down in front of his eyes and finally fell outside the Heaven Wasteland Tavern. This person is Tuoba Yen, right? Jiang Chen asked. I don't know him. Bai Feng Yu's expression was ugly. A self-righteous guy who keeps stirring up trouble. He even wants to marry me. What bad luck! Obviously, the person who fell from the top floor was Tuoba Yen. Bai Feng Yu naturally knew him. Boom! Boom! At the same time, explosions came from the first floor of the Heaven Wasteland Tavern. However, it didn't last long. It only lasted for a few breaths of time. However, not long after, the sounds of fighting came from the second floor. However, it didn't last long. Then, the sounds of fighting came from the third floor. Jiang Qun even heard the screams of young Lord Luo and young Lord Qin. What's going on? Could it be that someone fought all the way up from the first floor? Jiang Qun was stunned. Who could be so fierce? Jiang Qun stuck his head out and looked out of the window. He saw a large group of people lying on the ground outside the Heaven Wasteland Tavern. Young Lord Luo and young Lord Qin were also there. Boss! A fierce person is coming up. He swept the people from the first to the third floor. He's about to reach the private room. Be careful! Young Lord Luo and young Lord Qin saw Jiang Qun and hurriedly reminded him. Blood spurted out of their mouths, indicating that they were severely injured. Your two little brothers were beaten up by someone. Bai Fingyu giggled. That ruthless person should be reaching the pavilion soon. Yes, he was beaten up. Jiang Qun nodded lightly. His eyes flashed with coldness. Although Jiang Qun never admitted that young Lord Luo and young Lord Qin were his subordinates, since they were willing to call him Big Brother, it meant that they thought highly of him and gave Jiang Qun face. Now, two of his underlings had been beaten up. Jiang Qun looked calm, but there was a trace of anger in his heart. Of course, this anger was not great. As long as the other party admitted his mistake, Jiang Qun could let this matter slide. After all, his relationship with young Lord Luo and young Lord Qin had not reached the point where he would risk his life for them. It's him! Ninth Emperor Layer! Let's go! Right at this moment, the golden-robed young man and the obese Peng Ming appeared at the staircase of the pavilion. Instantly, those who were originally sitting in the pavilion stood up. They did not dare to stay for even a moment. In a few breaths' time, a group of people jumped out of the window. Only Jiang Qun and Bai Fingyu were still sitting there, safe and sound. Little girl, it has been 3 years since we last met, right? Huang Jiuchong said gently when he saw Bai Fingyu. You're becoming more and more beautiful. Yes, it has been 3 years since we last met. Bai Fingyu smiled. You're still the same, arrogant to the extreme. I can't help it. I was born with it. Huang Jiuchong looked helpless. He then looked at Jiang Qun and said, I've beaten my way up. Now you're the only one left in this pavilion. Then, Huang Jiuchong emphasized, I don't hit women. You beat up 2 of my little brothers. Jiang Qun said softly, Apologize and I'll let this matter pass. Huang Jiuchong was stunned when he heard that. That was because, ever since he was born, no one had dared to speak to him in such a manner. And Jiang Qun was the first to do so. Huang Jiuchong, this is my master. Bai Fingyu frowned. Just go to the top floor. Don't cause trouble here. No. Before Huang Jiuchong could say anything, Jiang Qun shook his head and said, Apologize. Otherwise, I'll make you go down the same way you came up. Oh, is that so? Huang Jiuchong raised his eyebrows. His face was full of arrogance. Pang Tong, who was beside him, tried his best to signal Jiang Qun with his eyes. He seemed to want Jiang Qun to leave immediately. That was because Pang Tong knew his master's temper very well. He killed people like they were ants. Usually, Huang Jiuchong looked kind, but he was extremely arrogant and bloodthirsty in his heart. Of course, Huang Jiuchong was very gentle towards women. Now, Jiang Qun's words and attitude had obviously provoked Huang Jiuchong. If they were to fight, Pang Tong was sure that Huang Jiuchong would definitely kill him. I'll kill you. At that moment, Huang Jiuchong did not waste any time. After saying those 3 words, he charged forward. His body emitted a golden light as if he was a sun. As he took a step forward, he waved his fist and punched out. The punch took the shape of a golden dragon. Dragon's breath surged out. Dragon's breath? You're not human? Jiang Qun exclaimed. He hurriedly threw out a punch and a bright moon appeared. Boom! It was as if the sun and the moon had collided. The power of heaven and earth and spiritual energy collided, but both were shattered into nothingness. So powerful. Jiangchen was moved. The power of heaven and earth was above spiritual energy. Logically speaking, Huang Jiucheng's punch should have been shattered when the fist and palm collided. His attack should not have been shattered. However, the power of heaven and earth did not gain the upper hand. In contrast to Jiangchen's shock, Huang Jiucheng's heart was in turmoil. He was neither human nor dragon. He was from the human dragon clan, which was a combination of humans and dragons. The spiritual energy of this clan was mixed with dragon energy, and was extremely powerful. Under normal circumstances, when facing an enemy, he only needed one move to defeat them with his spiritual energy. But now, even though his cultivation level was higher than Jiangchen's, he could only fight to a draw with Jiangchen. You have the right to be arrogant. I, Huang Jiucheng, am the one who said that. Huang Jiucheng roared. The phantom of a five-clawed golden dragon appeared behind him. Dragon's might was vast and mighty, and dragon's breath appeared around him like flames. Jiangchen did not dare to be careless. The emperor's vine behind him spread out, and an immortal bird stood on the vine, burning with flames. Twin Tao souls? Huang Jiucheng frowned. The phantom of the dragon behind him suddenly disappeared. Jiangchen was startled by such a sight. He couldn't help but stop and look at Huang Jiucheng in confusion. Tomorrow is the Shahuang meeting. If I fight you today, I won't be able to maintain my peak condition, Huang Jiucheng said in a low voice. I respect your strength. I acknowledge you. Ha, you're really arrogant. Jiangchen curled his lips. I'll have a good fight with you at the Shahuang meeting, Huang Jiucheng said. With that, Huang Jiucheng turned around and was about to go up to the top floor. However, Jiangchen suddenly moved and blocked Huang Jiucheng's path. He said coldly, Didn't you hear what I said just now? You have to apologize for hitting my underling. Chapter 268. If Jiangchen wasn't close to young Lord Luo and young Lord Qin, he wouldn't have just asked Huang Jiucheng to apologize. However, for someone like Huang Jiucheng, an apology was out of the question. Huang Jiucheng couldn't even lower his head. Do you want to die? Huang Jiucheng suddenly turned around. His eyes were cold, and there seemed to be a dragon roaring in them. You can try, Jiangchen said softly as a cold light flashed in his eyes. Huang Jiucheng was at the upper position of the heaven state and had the body of a human dragon. He had the power of a dragon and dragon's breath. However, Jiangchen wasn't afraid if they were to fight. Jiangchen wouldn't be able to come out unscathed. He wouldn't even be able to participate in the Youth Desolate meeting the next day. However, if he didn't stand up for his underlings when they were beaten up, he would be a failure. Huang Jiucheng, why don't you fight with me? At that moment, Zhao Mu Jiucheng walked down from the top floor. He looked at Huang Jiucheng and said, He's a disciple of Billow Academy. As his senior brother, I should take care of him. What the F***ck? With his strength, why would he need your help? Huang Jiucheng thought angrily. Your Highness, look at the big picture. Pang Ming said softly. You don't have to do this. Tomorrow is the Youth Desolate meeting. If you lose your strength today, it won't be good for you. Jiangchen, let's forget about it today. If you want to take revenge, you can wait until tomorrow. Zhao Mu Jiucheng said. If you participate in the Youth Desolate meeting, you'll meet each other sooner or later. That's right, Master. Let's forget about it. Bai Fingyu tried to persuade him. Tomorrow is the first day of the Youth Desolate meeting. It'll be the most intense day. All sorts of sky prides will be there. A great battle is unavoidable. Boss, let's forget about it. Boss. Let's forget about it. Let's forget about it. Young Lord Luo and young Lord Qin tried to persuade Huang Jiucheng as well. Jiangchen frowned when he heard that. He looked at Huang Jiucheng coldly and said softly, If we meet at the Youth Desolate meeting, I'll make you apologize to my underlings. As long as you can defeat me, everything is negotiable. I, Huang Jiucheng, won't submit to anyone except those who are stronger than me. Huang Jiuchong raised his brows and left without going to the top floor. Then, Jiangchen left with morning and evening wine. As for Bai Feng Yu, there was naturally someone taking care of him. After all, as the only successor of the White Sovereign City, she did not lack the protection of experts. Young Lord Luo and young Lord Qin didn't need to worry about them. Every time they went out, they would bring a bunch of bodyguards with them. If he had not fought in the Tianhuang Tavern, Huang Jiuchong would not have had the upper hand against young Lord Luo and young Lord Chen's bodyguards. Did you find out anything? Half an incense stick later, Jiang Chen and Morning Wine sat together in the inn. Nothing, Morning Wine said. It's the same as the previous Young Desolation Association. The first day consists of all sorts of things, such as the Tao of Alchemy, the Tao of Formations, and the Tao of Weapon Forging. The real competition will only begin on the second day. Morning Wine frowned. However, there are quite a few experts in this year's Young Desolation Association. Other than Huang Jiuchong, there are a few other strong people. Even I am not confident that I can defeat them. You can go to the Desolation God's training ground if you enter the top 100, Jiangchen said softly. Entering the top 100 is enough. It would be best if you can meet Huang Jiuchong. Are you sure you can defeat Huang Jiuchong? Morning Wine asked curiously. That guy is a draconian. He is born with great strength, and his body is as tough as a draconian's. His draconian force is much stronger than his spiritual force. Then, Zhao Mujio suddenly shook his head. He had a strange expression on his face as he muttered. I wonder how strong you are. Maybe you can really defeat a 9th-layer emperor. Maybe. Jiangchen smiled. Then he didn't say anything else. Then Zhao Mujio went back to her room, while Jiangchen sat cross-legged, closing his eyes to regulate his breath. Just like that, a day passed. The next morning, under Elder Qing's lead, everyone set out from the inn and arrived at the city lord's mansion. Tianhuang City was the largest city in the Barren State. The city governor's residence was naturally vast. The city governor's residence was more than 1,000 square meters, and there was a huge square. The Young Desolation Association was held there. When Jiang Chen and his companions arrived at the city lord's mansion, it was already crowded. They were all close to each other without any gaps. So many people? Dao Gui was surprised. He waved his sleeves and said, It seems that it is difficult to enter the top 100. It is not difficult for us, but it is indeed difficult for him, another young man said. This time, there were 5 people from the Billowing Academy. Other than Jiangchen, Morning Wine, and Dao Gui, there were 2 personal disciples of the Billowing Academy's Grand Elders. These 2 Grand Elders were not on good terms with Elder Qing. Thus, their personal disciples were naturally filled with hostility toward the people from Old Qing's faction. The young man who spoke was called Wang Ting. He was referring to Jiangchen. You are in the Venerable Realm, yet you are here to participate in the Young Desolation Association. Are you here to embarrass the Billowing Academy? The other Grand Elder's disciple, Lu Song, was even more direct. He did not give Jiangchen any face at all. Shut up! Before Jiangchen could speak, Elder Qing shouted. We haven't even started fighting yet, and you are already fighting among yourselves. What a scandal! Wang Ting and Lu Song did not dare to talk back to Elder Qing. However, when they looked at Jiangchen, they did not hide the mockery and disdain in their eyes. Discussing heroes while drinking wine, asking the world with a sword. At that moment, a loud voice came from the sky. An elder with white hair and a beard stood in the sky like a god. His eyes shone brightly, and a white crane stood beside him. It looked rather spirited. Today is the first day of the Young Desolation Association. We will not compete in martial arts, but in pills, weapons, formations, and talismans, the elder said. If anyone is skilled in these areas, you can go to the East Pavilion of the City Lord's Mansion. As for the rest, you can either go back today, or go to the East Pavilion to watch. As soon as he finished speaking, the crowd in the square began to move towards the East Pavilion. It was obvious that most people were unwilling to leave just like that. They wanted to go to the East Pavilion. Which one of you knows these things? Elder Qing frowned. As far as he knew, Dao Gui, Chao Mujio, Lu Song, and Wang Ting did not seem to be good at these things. These things might seem insignificant in the Young Desolation Association, but they had a huge impact. This was because these things would be counted in the final ranking of the Young Desolation Association. Jiangqin, your cultivation is so low. Are you spending all your time on these things? Why don't you go and try? That's right. With your strength, you can only participate in these miscellaneous competitions. You'll be courting death if you go up in a real battle. Lu Song and Wang Ting mocked. Chapter 269. I know a thing or two. I can give it a try, Jiangqin said softly but shook his head. However, what can I do even if I go? Are there any benefits? Of course there are benefits, Elder Qing said. Alchemy, formation, weapon, and talisman competitions. If you can enter the top 100 in any of the 4 competitions, you will be able to obtain the Battle Exemption Token. Battle Exemption Token? Jiangqin asked curiously. It means that in tomorrow's competition, if you meet someone you don't want to fight, you can use the Battle Exemption Token to win without a fight and advance directly, Elder Qing explained. The moment these words were said, Jiangqin was immediately interested. Jiangqin was confident but not arrogant. He knew very well that the Lesser Desolate Association gathered all the paragons of the barren state. His cultivation was too low, and it would be difficult for him to get first place or even enter the top 100. Jiangqin knew this from the beginning. Then, what should he do if he met someone he could not defeat? Was he defeated? But now, Jiangqin had a choice. Then, under Elder Qing's lead, everyone headed to the East Pavilion and arrived at the venue of the alchemy competition. The alchemy competition was naturally hosted by the Elixir Pavilion. However, there were fewer people who specialized in alchemy. Therefore, there were not many people in this venue. However, there were many people who came to watch. Among them were some big shots of sects, elders of families, and even people from powerful legacy forces. These people came here for 2 purposes. Firstly, they were here to purchase elixirs. Secondly, they were here to see if there were any alchemy experts who could be recruited into their sections. After all, alchemists were rare and were basically controlled by the Elixir Pavilion. Therefore, many families, sects, and even legacy forces were in need of alchemists. Especially alchemists with high attainments in alchemy. I heard that the person who came to host the alchemy competition this time came from the very remote solitary North City. I heard about it too. It's an old man with extremely high attainments in alchemy. There's a high chance that he will enter the headquarters of the Elixir Pavilion and become an elder. There were many discussions all around. Some were discussing alchemy while others were discussing the contestants. However, most of them were discussing the person who would be hosting the alchemy competition this time. When Jiangqin heard this, his expression involuntarily became strange. It was all because he saw the host of the alchemy competition. This person was actually Tong Sang. Jiangqin did not expect that Tong Sang would come to the heavenly desolate city. Furthermore, looking at Tong Sang's current appearance, he should have a very high status in the Elixir Pavilion. Otherwise, how could an ordinary person be qualified to host such a grand event like the Xiao Huang Assembly? Looks like this old man has been bitterly cultivating the Tao of alchemy ever since I left, Jiangqin thought to himself, then smiled at Tong Sang in the distance. Tong Sang had also seen Jiangqin long ago, but because he had to host the alchemy competition, he didn't have time to greet Jiangqin. Go ahead. Don't think it's embarrassing. After all, it's already embarrassing enough for you to participate in the Young Desolation meeting at your level. Wang Teng and Lu Song mocked him. They were filled with hostility towards Jiangqin. Regarding that, Jiangqin did not care at all. He merely chuckled and came in front of a pill furnace. There was no need to protect one's life in the alchemy competition. He only needed to refine a medicinal pill in front of everyone and then hand it to Tong Sang for inspection. There were also many herbs placed beside the pill furnace, saving him a lot of trouble. However, before Jiangqin could refine the pill, Tong Sang hurried over and said with a bitter smile. Sect Master, you aren't suitable, right? Why aren't I suitable? Jiang Chun was puzzled. Could it be that he shouldn't be participating in the alchemy competition? With your skill in alchemy, aren't you just being a bully by participating in the competition? Tong Sang rolled her eyes and said, This time, the Elixir Pavilion also sent a disciple to participate in the competition. Can the Elixir Pavilion take first place? Jiang Chun could not help but frown when he heard that. He glanced at Tong Sang and asked, You're all grown up now? You can meddle in my affairs now? Who taught you your Tao of pills? As soon as he said that, Tong Sang immediately shut up and hurriedly chuckled a few times. Then, Tong Sang licked his lips and smiled. He even rubbed his hands and asked tentatively, Sect Master, do you think I'm qualified to be your disciple now? You're not qualified. Jiang Chun shook his head decisively and said with a look of disdain, You're already so old, but your alchemy attainments are not even 9 stars. Your aptitude is too poor. You're simply embarrassing me by being my disciple. Tong Sang was stunned for a moment, and the bitter smile on his face deepened. He thought to himself, the sect master is indeed the sect master. He's still as direct as before, however. Tong Sang did not mind Jiang Chen's direct words and attitude. After all, he was used to it when he was in Xuanzuan's sect. Besides, it was all thanks to Jiang Chen that he could reach where he was today. If not for the alchemy cultivation booklet that Jiang Chen gave him, Tong Sang would probably still be in Xinyan town. I announce that Jiang Chen is the winner of this alchemy attainments competition. In the next moment, Tong Sang directly announced the results of this competition in front of everyone's dumbfounded faces. As for the champion, Jiang Chen, he did not refine a single pill. This time, the group was indignant. Elder Tong Sang, this person hasn't refined a pill yet. How can you say that he's the winner? That's right. The alchemy competition is not a competition of combat strength, but the pill's refined. He hasn't even refined a single pill. How can you say that he's the winner? There was a commotion all around. Someone even walked to Jiang Chen's side and said with a provocative look, He hasn't even refined a single pill. You probably have a backup plan, right? Elder Tong Sang, as the host of this year's Young Desolate Meeting Alchemy Competition, you have to be fair. Another person walked over with a freshly refined pill in his hand and said, This pill is superior 6-star. At my age, there are no more than 100 people in the entire barren state who can refine such a pill. 7-star inferior grade. 7-star intermediate grade. After that, many more people walked over, holding the pills that they had concocted, as if they were showing them off. He doesn't need to refine pills, Tong Sang said seriously. My alchemy was taught by him. What else does his pills need to prove? What? Impossible. It can't be. In an instant, exclamations sounded all around. Even Lu Song and Wang Ting, who mocked Jiang Chen previously, were moved. One had to know that Tong Sang was about to become an elder of the Elixir Pavilion headquarters. His attainments in alchemy could be ranked among the top in the entire godless continent, let alone in the barren state. And such a person's attainments in alchemy were actually taught by Jiang Chen. I don't believe it. He must have a backup plan. I'm going to report this to the Elixir Pavilion headquarters. Elder Tong Sang, do as you deem fit. After a series of exclamations, there were still people who expressed their unwillingness, dissatisfaction, and disbelief. Tong Sang completely ignored this group of people and was about to leave after announcing the results of the competition. Chapter 270. Tong Sang, if it's as you said, this person's alchemy skills are so high, let's ask him to make 1 pill. At that moment, an elder in a white robe appeared. Following his appearance, the crowd quietened down. This was because this elder was an elder of the Pavilion of Elixirs. His status was the highest in the competition grounds. Even some of the leaders of the top sects had to be courteous when they saw him. Elder Couture, the booklet I brought back to the Pavilion of Elixirs was written by this young man. Tong Sang whispered into Ku Tuo's ear with a strange expression. Ku Tuo had planned to ask Jiang Chen to refine an elixir for him, but he changed his mind immediately after hearing what Jiang Chen had said. He waved his hand and a token flew to Jiang Chen. He said, "With this token, you will be treated as a guest of the Pavilion of Elixirs." "What the hell? A guest of the Pavilion of Elixirs? A guest of the Pavilion of Elixirs?" At that moment, cries of surprise erupted like a tsunami. This was because the Pavilion of Elixirs had rarely given out such tokens in the past few years. It had been 3 years since they had accepted a guest of honor. Once one became a guest of the Pavilion of Elixirs, it meant that one had the protection of the Pavilion of Elixirs. Furthermore, one could enter the Pavilion of Elixirs and enjoy all the cultivation resources. "I don't accept this." "Yes. I don't accept this. I'm the first to accept this." However, those who came to participate in the competition were all young people after all. They were all proud and arrogant. They had not seen Jiang Chen make pills. How could they accept this? "All right, I'll refine a pill." Jiang Chen did not want to be criticized. He grabbed a few herbs and threw them into the cauldron. Then, the fire in the cauldron rose. His hands formed a seal. In just a few seconds, the cauldron was filled with the fragrance of pills. After another few seconds, Jiang Chen did not do anything special. He slapped the cauldron open and a purplish gold flower rose from the cauldron. A flower in the cauldron. Subsequently, under the shocked gazes of the crowd, the purple gold petals unfurled. There were 6 petals, and on each petal, there was a medicinal pill flickering with divine light floating up and down. At the center of the purple gold flower, there was a pill the size of a longan fruit. As it rotated, the surrounding origin energy seemed to be sucked in. Vaguely, one could see that there were flowers floating on top of the elixir. 9-star high-grade purple gold pill. A cauldron produces 6 pills, and 6 pills nourishes 1 pill. Flowers in the furnace. At this moment, cries of surprise rang out again. This time, there were no more voices of doubt. This was because Jiang Chen's move alone was enough to defeat anyone present, including Tong Sang and Ku Tuo. Even in the entire godless continent, there were only a few alchemists who could compare to him with just this one move. "I made a mistake." At this moment, Jiang Chen had an awkward expression on his face. His old face was slightly red as he muttered, "Only 6 pills. I was thinking of 9 pills, pooh. F***ck. Jiang Chen's voice was very soft, but it was still heard by many people. Some people could not take the blow and fainted on the spot. Some people were so angry that they could not help but curse. After all, a cauldron produces 6 pills, and 6 pills nourishes 1 pill. This was not something an ordinary person could do. However, such a move became a mistake in Jiang Chen's words. Even Ku Tuo had a strange expression on his face. He was shocked. "Who else has an opinion?" Tong Sang looked around with a proud expression. Although Jiang Chen had always refused to accept Tong Sang as his disciple, in Tong Sang's heart, Jiang Chen was his master. Tong Sang felt very proud to have such a powerful master. "Little brother, where are you now? Do you have a sect? Do you have a master? Do you have a place to stay?" Ku Tuo asked with a smile, his eyes shining. Jiang Chen could see through Ku Tuo's thoughts. He smiled lightly and said, "Jianzuan sect leader, Billowing Wave Academy's disciple, and Elder Qing's innamed disciple. Then have you ever thought of developing in other places?" Ku Tuo asked tentatively. "No." Jiang Chen shook his head. "I'm living quite well now, so I don't have any other thoughts." After that, Jiang Chen turned around and returned to Elder Qing's side. "Let's go and participate in the crafting competition. Kid, keep a low profile." Elder Qing smiled bitterly. "You obviously want to keep a low profile, but no matter where you go, you can't keep a low profile." "I want to keep a low profile too, but the conditions don't allow it," Jiang Chen said helplessly, waving his hand at Tong Sang. "Take care of Chuanzuan sect." "Yes." Tong Sang hurriedly nodded. He then looked at Ku Tuo and asked, Elder, what do you say? Think of a way to rope him in. Kutoa said seriously. The elixir pavilion must have this person. All right. Tong Sang nodded. After a dozen breaths, at the crafting field on the other side of the eastern pavilion. Compared to alchemists, craftsmen were even rarer. Only a dozen people had come to participate in the competition. However, after Jiang Chen's arrival, there were more people here. That was because those who had seen Jiang Chen refining pills had followed him. They wanted to see how good Jiang Chen was in crafting weapons. Just make one casually. Elder Qing looked at Jiang Chen strangely and reminded him. Keep a low profile. I know. Jiang Chen pursed his lips. He walked to the crafting furnace and casually poured some materials into it. Then, he executed a secret skill and made a series of hand seals. Half an hour later, the crafting furnace was opened, and a pile of extremely irregular armor that looked like a lump of paste appeared in front of everyone. Ha, how embarrassing! What the hell is this? Is it a pile of shit? Many people laughed out loud. Lu Song and Wang Ting's voices were the loudest. They even mocked Su Quebec. However, when the host walked to Jiang Chen and examined the pile of shit, his expression changed. He exclaimed, 8 stars armor? What? 8 stars? Are you kidding me? This pile of shit is an 8 stars armor? The crowd was dumbfounded. They were filled with doubt and disbelief. No one could believe that this pile of shit was an 8 stars armor. That was not right. Previously, someone had made a 7 stars armor. Now that you have an 8 stars armor, you should be the first, the host said. Then, he looked at the crowd and asked, Is there anyone who can make an armor that is better than an 8 stars armor? Hearing that, the crowd looked at each other and shook their heads. After all, at their age, being able to refine the 7 stars armor was already considered a monster among monsters. However, it was impossible for them to make an 8 stars armor. If you can make an 8 stars armor that looks better than this pile of shit, I'll consider it your win, the host said. Chapter 271. However, everyone still shook their heads with a dejected expression. After all, an 8-star armor wasn't something that could be forged at will. Not only did it require extremely high attainments in forging, but it also required years of tempering and accumulation. Only then could one have the ability to forge an 8-star armor. Since that's the case, then this little brother is the winner of this competition. The host announced the result, then asked with a smile. Little brother, where did you learn from? Are you willing to join my weapon pavilion? Self-taught, I'm not willing to join your weapon pavilion, Jiang Chen said. I'm a disciple of the Billow Academy. After speaking, Jiang Chen returned to Elder Qing's side and asked, Is this Loki enough? Elder Qing was stunned, not knowing what to say. At your age, you actually forged an 8-star armor, and that's considered Loki? What's the highest level of armor you can forge? Elder Qing asked. If there are enough materials, it shouldn't be a problem to forge a divine weapon. It's just that it takes a lot of time, Jiang Chen said after thinking for a while. Elder Qing immediately shut up, revealing an expression that said he didn't want to talk to Jiang Chen. Then, the few of them continued to walk and arrived at the array formation competition venue. Behind them, a group of people followed, still wanting to see what attainments Jiang Chen had in array formation. Many people didn't believe that a person could be proficient in all kinds of principles. Master! When Jiang Chen and the others arrived at the array formation competition venue, an enthusiastic and slightly exaggerated exclamation sounded. Then, Lu Shan rushed to Jiang Chen with a flushed face with excitement. Why are you here? Jiang Chen was stunned. He didn't expect Lu Shan and Tong Sang to be at the Young Desolation Society. I'm here to host the array formation competition, Lu Shan said, tugging at Jiang Chen's sleeve. Even at his age, he still acted coquettishly, saying, Master, can you accept me as your disciple now? What do you think? Jiang Chen squinted at him. You're already so old, but you're still so shameless. You want to be my disciple with such little talent? Move aside. I'm now an elder of the Array Pavilion headquarters, Lu Shan hurriedly said. I can't become your disciple just because of this? According to what you're saying, does that mean that all the elders of the Array Pavilion can become my disciples? Jiang Chen said unhappily. All right, cut the crap. I'm here to participate in the Array Dao competition. The moment he said that, Lu Shan did not even hesitate as he said to the surrounding contestants. There's no need to compete. Jiang Chen wins the Array formation competition. What? Elder Lu Shan, what the hell are you doing? He didn't even set up a single formation, so how did he win? Many people expressed their dissatisfaction. There were even some youngsters with high statuses who directly questioned Lu Shan. What's the point of competing? My Array Dao was taught by him. Lu Shan shouted. What? You want to compete with my master? You might as well challenge me directly. When everyone heard this, it could be said that they were in a state of 10,000 stupefaction. A dignified elder of the Array Pavilion's headquarters, whose attainments in array formations were actually taught by a youth. This was impossible, right? There's no need to explain so much to them, Jiang Chen said softly. Lines of runes appeared in front of him like swimming dragons. The runes swam and filled the air. Then, they turned into bolts of lightning and filled the air with a roar of thunder and light. Under the raging thunder, the arrays set up by those who participated in the competition earlier all collapsed. One move. He broke all the arrays here? This can't be, right? Exclamations rang out one after another. Even the group of elders was shocked. It was especially the case for those who had been following them since the beginning. They were all dumbfounded when they saw Jiang Chen's attainments in tactical formations were so profound. Alchemy Dao, Crafting Dao, Array Dao, proficient in all three? This is not a monster, this is a genius. A few elders from the top sects exclaimed and walked towards Jiang Chen. Their intentions were clear. They wanted to recruit Jiang Chen. After all, once a youth like Jiang Chen grew up, his future achievements would be immeasurable. If he was recruited into the sect and nurtured well, he would definitely be able to protect the sect forever. He's a disciple of our Billow Academy. However, before these people walked to Jiang Chen, Elder Qing's cold voice rang out. His eyes flickered with a wisp of cold light. His beard was fluttering as he said coldly, What? Do you want to snatch a disciple from our Billow Academy? Ah? He's already a disciple of the Billow Academy? F***CK. We were too late. Many people sighed. If they had met Jiang Chen earlier, they might have had a chance to recruit Jiang Chen into their sect. However, after a few breaths, a few people exclaimed and revealed Jiang Chen's identity. He's the abandoned son of the Jiang family. The Martial Pavilion has always wanted his life. He's the sect leader of the Qianzuan sect in solitary North City and Qingyan Town. I heard that he's the only descendant of the White Emperor City, by Fengyu's master. As more and more news about Jiang Chen spread, all of the people present were shocked. Moreover, those who wanted to recruit Jiang Chen into their sect gave up on the idea. After all, if they recruited Jiang Chen into their sect, they would become enemies with the Jiang family and the Martial Pavilion. Although these sects were powerful, they were like ants in front of the Martial Pavilion and the Jiang family. They could not even withstand a single blow. It seems like only the Billow Academy can protect him. I heard something else. It said that Jiang Chen was supposed to enter the Heaven and Earth Pavilion, but the Vice Dean of the Heaven and Earth Pavilion, Li Yuan, sent Jiang Chen to the Billow Academy. Someone said. However, as soon as this person finished speaking, he saw his entire body fly out. Nonsense! There's no such thing! Our Heaven and Earth Pavilion has never planned to recruit Jiang Chen as a disciple. At this moment, the voices of Lan Xuanji, Little Fire God, and His Majesty rang out. It was obvious that they wanted to explain for the sake of the Heaven and Earth Pavilion. However, even though that was the case, the Heaven and Earth Pavilion's heart was bleeding. There's still the last round of talismans, Jiang Chen said softly. He ignored the voices around him and walked toward the talisman venue. At the same time, more and more people followed behind Jiang Chen. They were like a long dragon, led by Jiang Chen. They walked toward the field of runes in a formidable array. After a dozen breaths, Jiang Chen arrived at the talisman venue. Just as he was about to save his life, he heard the organizer of the talisman competition announce Jiang Chen's victory. This time, the crowd was stunned again. Even Jiang Chen was confused. This was because Jiang Chen did not know the organizer of the talisman competition. Since he did not know Jiang Chen, why did he announce Jiang Chen's victory when he had not formed a talisman? Little Prince Tianjie, I know your name. At this moment, the organizer of the talisman competition walked over and said with a wry smile, "The guiding lightning talisman is a 9-star talisman." "Oh? You've heard of me?" Jiang Chen blinked and said mockingly. "But what if they're not convinced? Why don't I form a talisman for them to see?" "Don't!" The organizer was shocked because he had heard that Jiang Chen only knew how to form the guiding lightning talisman. If he formed a guiding lightning talisman here and attracted the heavenly tribulation, many people would be implicated by the heavenly tribulation. At that time, the entire Tianhuang city would be razed to the ground by the heavenly tribulation. Chapter 272. Let's not compete. This guy's lightning guiding talisman is famous in the Billow Academy. He often transcends tribulations every few days. That's right. Only you guys don't know. Which disciple of the 10 great academies doesn't know the name of the little prince of heavenly tribulation? That lightning guiding talisman. Anyway, I can't form it. Around them, many disciples of the 10 great academies spoke. As for those competitors, after hearing these words, they did not even have the courage to question, and all chose to forfeit. Jiang Chen was stunned for a moment. He blinked and looked at the host, then pointed at himself and asked, "I won just like that." "Won. The host hurriedly said. "Don't blindly form lightning guiding talismans. I know other talismans too. If you don't believe me, I'll show you," Jiang Chen said hurriedly. "I know many types of talismans." "Don't. Who knows what kind of talismans you're going to form? Don't turn the world upside down when the time comes. Hurry up and save it." The host hurriedly pushed Jiang Chen out of the competition venue, and then disappeared in a flash. At this moment, Jiang Chen was in a mess. He even looked at Elder Qing with an innocent face and muttered weakly, "I also want to keep a low profile, but the conditions don't allow it." It's not allowed." Elder Qing's face darkened as he broke out in cold sweat for Jiang Chen. It was all because the Young Desolate Association gathered the Barren State's strongest group of prodigies. And with Jiang Chen being so famous and being so high profile, he would definitely attract envious people. At that time, someone might secretly attack Jiang Chen and strangle Jiang Chen in the cradle. During this period of time in the Young Desolate Association, you follow by my side and are not allowed to take half a step away," Elder Qing said seriously. "I understand." Jiang Chen nodded, also understanding Elder Qing's meaning. After that, Elder Qing led Jiang Chen and the rest away. And because of Jiang Chen, the alchemy, formation, artifact, and talisman competitions ended early. Therefore, after half a day, the enormous city lord's mansion became empty. All the participants had left. However, even though he had left, Jiang Chen's reputation skyrocketed. There were rumors that Jiang Chen was the disciple with the most potential in the Billowing Wave Academy. There were also people who guessed that Jiang Chen might have mastered even more means, such as restrictions, barriers, and so on. Of course, some people still looked down on Jiang Chen. After all, Jiang Chen's cultivation was only at the venerable realm. Among the many geniuses who came to participate in the Junior Desolation meeting, this level of cultivation was indeed at the bottom. "I just found out that the descendants of the 10 ghosts have been born." As soon as he returned to the inn, morning and evening wine found Jiang Chen with a serious expression. Jiang Chen was puzzled and could not help but ask what the 10 ghosts were. Jiang Chen finally understood after listening to morning and evening wine's explanation. It turned out that there was a mysterious barrier in the barren state, which was formed by the 10 great cultivators. Among the top 10 experts, some cultivated martial arts, some were proficient in spells, and some studied curses. These 10 people were known as the top experts in their respective fields. Furthermore, they were extremely mysterious. No one knew what these 10 people looked like. They only knew that these 10 people had once broken into the Martial Pavilion headquarters and escaped unscathed. They were listed as the most wanted criminals by the Martial Pavilion. Now, the 10 ghosts almost did not appear in front of everyone anymore. There were rumors that the 10 ghosts had already been killed by the Martial Pavilion. But there were also people who guessed that the 10 ghosts might be setting up a big picture. And recently, Morning and Evening Wine went outside to gather information and happened to find out some news about the 10 ghosts. It was said that the successor of one of the 10 ghosts had been born and came to participate in the Junior Desolation meeting. However, no one knew who the successor of the 10 ghosts was. "I heard that it's the successor of the samurai ghosts," Morning and Evening Wine said in a low voice. "The successor of the 10 ghosts is definitely not weaker than those strongest geniuses. In fact, he might even be stronger than them. What has that got to do with me?" Jiangchen pursed his lips. "I don't plan on winning. As long as I can enter the top 100, it's fine. I'm just telling you." Morning and Evening Wine took a sip of strong liquor and muttered, "If I meet the successor of the 10 ghosts, I don't know if I can beat him. You should be able to." Jiang Chen's eyes flashed. He said mockingly, "The owner of the freedom technique. In this generation, how many people can be your match?" Hearing this, Morning and Evening Wine's expression changed. He seemed to be very surprised. "I can tell at a glance that you're cultivating the freedom technique," Jiang Chen explained. "Previously, you told me that your Tao is different from the Buddhist Tao. It's the Tao of freedom. That's why I guessed that you're the successor of the long-lost freedom technique." "Yes." Morning and Evening Wine did not hide it. He smiled bitterly and said, "So what? The successor of the freedom technique is not necessarily invincible in this era." "That's true." Jiang Chen nodded. He also felt that this era seemed to be somewhat different. He remembered that in his previous life, Jiang Chen had also met many geniuses, but the number was definitely not as many as in this life. It was just a barren state. How many geniuses had Jiang Chen run into? Jiang Lu, who had the sacred body of the ancient era, Bai Fingyu, who had the sacred body of Taiyin, Hua Liani, who had the sacred body of all spirits, and war dancer Hua Liani. There was also Mu Xingyun, who had the shadow Dao soul, and Yan Chang'e. These people, if placed in other eras, would have been peerless and invincible for a period of time. In normal eras, it was already good enough to have one such person. But now, in just the barren state, there were already so many powerful people. Now, Jiang Chen met another powerful person. The successor of the freedom technique, Morning and Evening Wine. "This era will be extremely glorious and also extremely dark," Morning and Evening Wine said in a low voice. "I also heard it from my master. I don't understand." "Perhaps," Jiang Chen said softly. He also had the same feeling. "So what if he has the freedom technique? That Dao Gui who came with us also has the Taoist 9 syllables. His strength is not inferior to mine." Morning and Evening Wine smiled bitterly. "If I meet Dao Gui, I'm not confident that I can defeat him. Taoist 9 syllables! Even such a thing has appeared?" Jiang Chen exclaimed in surprise. One had to know that the Taoist 9 syllables was the highest scripture of Taoism. This was not only a cultivation technique, but also a martial technique. However, the Taoist 9 syllables had disappeared for several eras. Even in the 9th heaven divine realm, the Taoist 9 syllables had been lost. Who would have thought that in this life, even the Taoist 9 syllables had appeared? "A glorious era!" Jiang Chen's eyes flickered. "Such a great era is suitable for me. Otherwise, it would be boring to be invincible." Cough, cough. "Don't say that. You should improve your cultivation first." Morning and Evening Wine coughed lightly and rolled his eyes. He didn't know where Jiang Chen got the courage to say such words. Although morning and evening wine knew that Jiang Chen was very strong, he was invincible in his generation, or even in the world. He was probably exaggerating. Jiang Chen was too lazy to explain. He just looked up at the distant sky and said, "This world is so beautiful after all." Chapter 273. The night passed uneventfully. Until the next morning, when a magnificent bell rang in the heavenly wasteland city, the whole city became boisterous as if it were in an uproar. Youths walked out of the inns one by one and headed towards the city lord's residence under the guidance of their elders. There were also people from all walks of life who flew in the air and stood around the city lord's residence. Jiang Chen and company followed the crowd and entered the city lord's residence after half an hour. There were even more people today than yesterday. After all, today was the day that the young desolate meeting truly began. Inside the city lord's residence, 6 platforms rose into the air for the crowd to set up, watch the battles, and rest. At the same time, 100 arenas rose into the air in the huge square. The mysterious light from the boundaries and formations was like a divine rain falling from the sky. A group of youths stood upright and were in high spirits. "The young desolate meeting begins!" After another half an hour, a middle-aged man rose into the air and spoke with a voice that sounded like a large bell. The entire place was in an uproar. Boom! Boom! With a series of explosions, the 100 arenas merged and turned into a 1,000-meter-wide giant arena. A barrier and array formation rose and enveloped the area. "Everyone knows the rules." "Please," the middle-aged man said and then fell silent. Just as he finished speaking, a huge silk scroll hung in the air above the stage. There were only 2 words on the silk book: life and death. The silk book was like the 2 words, life and death. It meant that the battles of the young desolate meeting did not concern life and death. Those who chose to participate were not allowed to seek revenge if they died in battle. The first battle of the young desolate meeting was a battle royale. All the prodigies of the barren state would fight in the same arena until there were only 400 people left. How intense! No matter how strong one is, when faced with a battle royale of this level, the slightest carelessness will result in defeat or even death. Many people who had originally planned to participate could not help but shrink back and choose to forfeit when they saw the 2 huge words, life and death. Of course, even more people were like carps swimming in reverse. They knew that the road ahead was dangerous, but they still chose to advance. Be careful. Many people from the Martial Pavilion and Jiang family are participating this time. In this battle royale, they will most likely target you. Elder Qing said in a deep voice. "Do what you can. If you can't handle it, choose to give up. Your life is the most important thing." "I know." Jiang Chen nodded. However, at this moment, Jiang Chen and Elder Qing looked at each other and thought of the same thing at the same time. That was the order to abstain from fighting. By then, Jiang Chen had 4 exemption tokens, each of which could help him avoid a fight. In that case, Vice Pavilion Master Ho Tao, disciple of the Billowing Wave Academy, Jiang Chen, has used a battle exemption command to avoid this chaotic battle. Elder Qing raised his head and looked at the middle-aged man standing in the air. At the same time, he handed over Jiang Chen's exemption order. Ho Tao was the Vice Pavilion Master of the Martial Pavilion's headquarters. In the Martial Pavilion, his position was far above the 10 halls. Even Elder Qing had to be wary and courteous when facing Ho Tao. What the hell? Using the battle exemption order to avoid a chaotic battle. This is really worth it. With a battle exemption order, you can enter the top 400 directly. This battle exemption order. I'm so envious. Many people were envious when they heard that. Of course, there were also people who stared at Jiang Chen with hostility and even murderous intent in their eyes. Coward! At this moment, Huan Jiucheng's voice was heard not far away. He glared at Jiang Chen and said, "Get into the ring if you dare." "Forget it. You have to survive the chaotic battle first. Don't get beaten to death by the crowd in the chaotic battle," Jiang Chen said mockingly. "You can be a coward too, But you have to have a battle exemption order first. Huang Jiucheng was speechless. He glared at Jiang Qin and entered the ring. He had no choice. Not everyone could be such a coward. You have to have a battle exemption order first. The Young Desolate meeting only had 4 battle exemption orders, and all of them were taken by Jiang Qin. Jiang Qin felt helpless too. He thought about how he could be a coward 4 times in the Young Desolate meeting. At that time, a large group of people would be envious of him. That guy looks familiar. After a dozen breaths, the chaotic battle began. Jiang Qin stood on the floating platform and looked at the ring. He saw a slightly chubby young man. Jiang Qin could see clearly that the young man was obviously in disguise. His disguise was so good that even a sage would not be able to see through it. However, no matter how good the disguise was, Jiang Qin could see through it with his sun-moon pupil and yin-yang eye. However, when Jiang Qin activated his sun-moon pupil, he still could not see the young man's true appearance. Damn fatty! After a dozen breaths, Jiang Qin saw the way the fatty fought. Jiang Qin could not help but chuckle. He already knew who the fatty was. That person was Jianglu, who had suddenly disappeared. Jianglu seemed to have sensed Jiang Qin's gaze. After pushing away his opponent's hand, he looked up and smiled at Jiang Qin. That gaze, needless to say, was still the same. Kill him! Kill him! Suddenly, angry shouts could be heard from the arena. Jiang Qin looked over and saw Huang Jiucheng being beaten up by a large group of people. He was lying on the ground, covered in blood, and could not get up for a long time. What are you pretending to be strong for? Look at how arrogant you were just now. You're still lying on the ground after being beaten up by us. That's right, we're beating you up. Who asked you to pretend? Who asked you to be arrogant? The group of young men was beating him up mercilessly. Every move was fatal. However, Huang Jiucheng had the body of a human dragon. His physical body was extremely strong. Although he was lying on the ground, his vital organs were not injured. A layer of divine light shone on his body, and streams of dragon blood flowed under his skin. After this chaotic battle, I'll deal with all of you bastards one by one. Huang Jiucheng was extremely angry and frustrated. If it was a one-on-one fight, none of them would be a match for him. However, this was a chaotic battle. Huang Jiucheng was used to being arrogant and had offended many people. Now, these people had joined forces to deal with him. Serves you right. Jiang Qin was all smiles when he saw that young Lord Luo and young Lord Chen were also in the group beating up Huang Jiucheng. The 2 of them were extremely ruthless. Jiang Qin even saw young Lord Luo kicking Huang Jiucheng's crotch with all his might. That was really painful just looking at it. This little girl is quite smart. After watching Huang Jiucheng for a while, Jiang Qin saw Bai Fingyu on the other side of the ring. This little girl had used the power of Yin to seal herself in ice and locked herself in a block of ice. The cold air was bone-piercing, and the ice was indestructible. As such, no one wanted to deal with Bai Fingyu. Then, Jiang Qin scanned the entire ring. When he saw Zhao Mujio, he was in a bad mood. This guy's fighting style was really unique. Chapter 274. Beside the morning and evening wine, there was a layer of light green fog that emitted a strong wine fragrance. Anyone who came close to the morning and evening wine would fall to the ground as if they were drunk once they came into contact with the light green fog. Of course, there were some experts who forced their way through the fog, but they were splashed with strong wine by the morning and evening wine. Jiang Qin naturally didn't know how strong the wine in the morning and evening wine's gourd was. However, morning and evening wine usually looked drunk, so the wine in the gourd was definitely not ordinary. It must be extremely strong. Those geniuses were only splashed with wine, but they staggered and spun around on the spot. In a few breaths' time, they fell to the ground with their faces facing the sky. Are you fighting or making them drink? Jiang Qin muttered. Suddenly, Jiang Chen's expression froze as he saw a familiar person. At the edge of the arena, Bai Shui was dressed in white, but her whole body was emitting a blood-like radiance. The Azura Tao soul was like the Dharma embodiment of heaven and earth, standing behind her. Her eyes were red, and she pushed her hands forward. Violent intent burst out like a surging river. Her graceful figure danced in the crowd. Wherever she passed, people were thrown off their feet. No one could contend against her. This fellow's Azura Tao soul has advanced again. Jiang Chen's eyes narrowed. In this world, although some Tao souls weren't strong, they could continue to advance until they could contend with the top 10 Tao souls. For example, Tian Shui's Azura Tao soul could continue to advance until it turned into the 10 Evils general manager. However, the Azura Tao soul was ferocious and cruel. Those who had this Tao soul usually didn't have a good ending. They would often be devoured by their own Tao souls and become walking corpses. Some even turned into mad demons that only knew how to kill. Previously, Jiang Chen had fought with Tian Shui in the Square Divine Institute. At that time, if Jiang Chen hadn't intervened, Tian Shui would have been devoured by the Azura Tao soul. And now, looking at Tian Shui, it seemed that she could completely control the Azura Tao soul. Could it be related to the Empress? Jiang Chen thought, and then glanced at other places. However, there was nothing much to see. In Jiang Chen's heart, as long as the people around him were fine, everything would be fine. This chaotic battle didn't last for long. That was because in the chaotic battle between a group of geniuses and monsters, each of them displayed their full abilities. Their battle prowess was unparalleled, and they wanted to end the battle quickly. In the time it took for half an incense stick to burn, the top 400 had been determined. And as expected by Jiang Chen, Jiang Lu, Bai Fengyu and the rest all entered the top 400. The only thing that surprised Jiang Chen was Huang Jiucheng. This guy, from the beginning to the end, he had been surrounded and beaten up, but in the end, he had endured it all. At this moment, Huang Jiucheng was in a sorry state. However, he still roared at the sky and said some extremely arrogant words. As for the people who had ganged up on Huang Jiucheng, they all had unsightly expressions on their faces. They were afraid that they would be beaten to death by Huang Jiucheng if they were to encounter him in the upcoming battle. At the very least, it was a serious injury. All of you, just wait for this prince. Those who dared to lay their hands on me will not have an easy time. Huang Jiucheng's face suddenly turned cold. There seemed to be a true dragon roaring in his eyes as he glanced at the people who had ganged up on him. Pavilion Master Ho Tao, I forfeit. I forfeit too. At this moment, young Lord Luo and young Lord Chen spoke one after another. They chose to forfeit in front of so many people. That was because they were also afraid of Huang Jiucheng. Among the people who had ganged up on Huang Jiucheng, these two were the most ferocious. One of them kicked Huang Jiucheng's crotch while the other kicked Huang Jiucheng's face. If they still didn't forfeit, they would probably be beaten up by Huang Jiucheng if they encountered him in the future. Don't forfeit if you have the guts! Huang Jiucheng was furious. After being beaten up by young Lord Luo and young Lord Chen, these two shamelessly forfeited before he could even take revenge. Forfeit if you have the guts! Young Lord Luo raised his eyebrows and mocked. Do you dare? That's right, do you dare to forfeit? If you do, I, young Lord Chen, will respect you as a man. Young Lord Chen mocked. The moment he said that, Huang Jiucheng was speechless. What kind of strength did he have? He could easily enter the top 100. He could even enter the top 50. You want me to forfeit? Are you King kidding me? Just you wait. Perhaps one day, my Dragon Man race will flatten your 800 miles Black River and the Bank of the World. Huang Jiucheng said coldly with killing intent. The 800 miles Black River will wait for you at any time. Although the Dragon Man race is strong, I'm afraid you're not qualified to flatten the Bank of the World. Young Lord Chen and young Lord Luo raised their eyebrows. They were full of confidence. In a one-on-one battle, the two of them were naturally afraid of Huang Jiucheng. But in terms of strength, the 800 miles Black River and the Bank of the World were definitely not weaker than the Dragon Man race. Let's rest for 15 minutes before the second round begins. Ho Tao said and waved his hand, indicating for everyone to stop making a ruckus. Then, everyone sat down to meditate and recover from their injuries. After the time it took for an incense stick to burn, the sticks made of spiritual power fell in front of the top 400 people. Every lot had a number engraved on it, and the number corresponded to the number of the contestant. For example, 1 against 400, 2 against 399, and so on. However, because Jiang Qin had used the exemption order, there was one more contestant in the second round. The original top 400 had become 401 people. Who am I fighting against? At this moment, Jiang Qin was looking at a stick floating in front of him with an odd expression. Number 401 was written on it. F*CK. Is this guy cheating? Bye. Many people saw Jiang Qin's lot number 2. They kept swearing and cursing him. This was because everyone knew the rules of the Young Desolation Association. After all, there had been people who had used the exemption order in the past. Therefore, there was a rule that whoever got lot 401 would be considered to have a bye and would be able to enter the third round of the competition. What the F*CK? He didn't even make a single round, and he's already in the top 100? The key is that he has 3 exemption orders. Many people rolled their eyes and felt that it was unfair. According to this rule, Jiang Qin's bye meant that he would be ranked at least 201st in the Young Desolation Association. At that time, he would be able to enter the top 100 with the second battle exemption order. The worst he could get was the 101st place. After that, if he used the third exemption order, wouldn't that mean that Jiang Qin would be ranked at least 51st on the Desolation Board? Most importantly, Jiang Qin had 4 exemption orders. After using the last exemption order, Jiang Qin would be ranked at least 26th in the Young Desolation Association. What did it mean to be ranked 26th in the Young Desolation Association? It meant that he was one of the most powerful geniuses of the younger generation in the barren state. If Jiang Qin wanted to obtain all these, he didn't even need to fight. Just you wait. I don't believe that you can get a bye. Huang Jiuchong was the first to speak. He had a grudge against Jiang Qin and wished that he could beat Jiang Qin to death the next time he met Jiang Qin. However, Jiang Qin only chuckled and said, "Who can say for sure when it comes to luck?" Chapter 275. If you don't get a bye in the next round again, I'll eat *T. Huang Jiuchong roared in front of everyone. At this moment, many people had strange expressions on their faces. Someone even said in a mocking tone, "What if he really gets a bye? Do you want to eat hot or cold? Be careful when you speak to this emperor. I'll beat you to death later." Huang Jiuchong was extremely arrogant. His dragon aura surged, and he wanted to attack right now. "Everyone, get into the arena yourselves." Ho Tao was already used to such things. After all, he had hosted the Young Desolate meeting for several years, and he often saw such situations. Next, the huge arena scattered, turning into 100 arenas. Then, a group of prodigies went up, and the second battle began. Jiang Qin didn't look. He closed his eyes and seemed to be resting. That was because he wasn't worried about Bai Fengyu and the rest at all. Jiang Lu, Bai Fengyu, and the rest were all personally taught by him. If they couldn't even get into the top 100, then Jiang Qin would have to think about chasing them out of the sect. "You fell asleep?" After half an incense stick's worth of time, the battles on the various arenas were extremely heated. There were angry roars and roars, as well as the sounds of battle. However, Elder Qin heard the sound of snoring next to his ear. When they took a closer look, they found that Jiang Qin, who had been resting with his eyes closed, had actually fallen asleep. You should at least show some seriousness." Elder Qin covered his face and moved a few steps to the side, afraid that others would know that he came with Jiang Qin. After all, Jiang Qin was the first person in history to fall asleep in the Young Desolate meeting. This was too embarrassing. Did he treat the Young Desolate meeting as a game? Half a day later, the second battle of the Young Desolate meeting ended. This was a one-on-one battle, and it was very intense. Those who could win were considered the strongest prodigies in the barren state. Among them, the most eye-catching ones were the disguised Jianglu, Huang Jiuchong, Dao Gui, a disciple from the Martial Pavilion, a disciple from the Heaven and Earth Pavilion, and Tian Shui. These people had defeated their opponents with absolute strength, and all of them had only used one move. Jiang Chun was not surprised that others had such strength. However, Jiang Chun was surprised that Jianglu had become so strong. To be honest, in Jiang Chen's mind, if Jianglu wanted to enter the top 200, he estimated that it would take some effort. Unexpectedly, after not seeing him for a period of time, Jianglu's strength could be said to have undergone a tremendous change. Especially from Jianglu's moves, it was not the martial arts technique taught by Jiang Chen. Could it be, this kid, what has he been doing all this time? Jiang Chen muttered. At this moment, Ho Tao's voice rang out once again. Rest for half an incense stick's time. Regardless of your recovery, the third battle will continue. As soon as these words were spoken, the expressions of those who were originally injured in the battle couldn't help but tighten, and they immediately sat down to meditate. Only a few people were unscathed after the battle. They did not even use their full strength, and still maintained their peak state. These few people were like cranes in a flock of chickens, standing among the crowd as if they were the kings of the younger generation in the barren state. This was especially so for Huang Jiuchong. His face was arrogant, and his eyes were full of arrogance. Beside him, Pang Ming was flattering him as usual, and Huang Jiuchong enjoyed it very much. Draw lots! At the same time, Ho Tao raised his hand and waved, and lots made of spiritual energy fell down, landing randomly in front of the people who had advanced. At this moment, almost everyone's gaze was on Jiang Chen. Hey, wake up, everyone is looking at you. Elder Qing's face was flushed. He really couldn't understand how Jiang Chen could fall asleep in the Young Desolate Association. Wasn't this F*King intentional? Jiang Chen woke up with a confused expression, as if he had forgotten that he was still in the Young Desolate Association. However, when he saw the number on the lot in front of him, Jiang Chen's expression became strange. At the same time, Huang Jiucheng's face was as dark as ink. F*CK. Another buy? Then, Huang Jiucheng. At this moment, everyone saw the words 201 written on Jiang Chen's lot. This meant that Jiang Chen was going to get a buy again. Dragon Man, do you want to eat sh*T? Jiang Chen narrowed his eyes and looked at Huang Jiucheng mockingly. He pointed at his lot and said, Huang Jiucheng, you don't look like someone who doesn't keep his word. Huang Jiucheng opened his mouth. His entire face was red, but he couldn't say anything. What could he do? He couldn't really eat sh*T, right? Everyone, this is a unique product of the Dragon Man clan, the fragrant durian. According to the Dragon Man clan, this is sh*T. Pang Ming was smart. He took out a fruit the size of a longan fruit from his spatial ring and explained it in front of everyone. Huang Jiucheng knew that he couldn't back down, so he could only eat the fruit in front of everyone. Everyone saw it. My prince never goes back on his word, Pang Ming said hurriedly as he wiped the cold sweat off his forehead. If he wasn't smart, Huang Jiucheng would have eaten sh*T today. After all, Pang Ming knew Huang Jiucheng's character. He was a man of his word. However, Huang Jiucheng's face was really swollen today. Huang Jiucheng, do you dare to bet again? If Jiang Chen gets a buy again, you'll eat sh*T. Lu Song had also advanced to the next round. He looked proud and arrogant as he mocked Huang Jiucheng. Why wouldn't I? Huang Jiucheng raised his eyebrows. If he gets a buy again, I'll eat sh*T. All right. Prince, you're so bold. If he really gets a buy, where can we find sh*T? Many people were gloating and hoping that Jiang Chen would get a buy. However, many people were conflicted. After all, they were all cultivators and had already abstained from eating. How could they have sh*T in their bodies? If Huang Jiucheng lost the bet, where could they find sh*T? It was a very serious problem. Half the time it took for an incense stick to burn, Ho Tao announced the start of the third round of the Young Desolation meeting. This round was extremely important to the participants. If they won this round, they would enter the top 100 and enter the Desolation God's dojo. They would also enter the Desolation board. Of course, none of this was a problem for Jiang Chen. He still had 3 exemption orders. Even if he was ranked 101st, he wouldn't have to worry about anything. Oh no! After more than 10 breaths passed, Jiang Chen's gaze became grave, and he furrowed his brows. This was because he saw Jiang Lu standing in one of the arenas, and his opponent was actually an Emperor Realm 9 level cultivator. I'm afraid he's no match for Huang Jiuchong. Jiang Chen sighed. He had fought Huang Jiuchong before and knew his strength. Although Jiang Lu had become very strong, he was still inferior to Huang Jiuchong in Jiang Chen's eyes. After all, Jiang Lu was only in the lower earth realm, while Huang Jiuchong was in the heaven realm. Moreover, he was in the upper heaven realm. Chapter 276. Huang Jiuchong was arrogant, and his way of doing things was indeed unpleasant. However, one had to admit that Huang Jiuchong was very powerful. As a member of the Dragonman clan, he had a strong physique and the power of dragons. Moreover, Huang Jiuchong had not even used his full strength in the previous battle. Now that Jiang Lu was facing off against Huang Jiuchong, Jiang Chen could not help but feel worried for Jiang Lu. Nameless person, I'll kill you! At that moment, Huang Jiuchong looked arrogant, and his eyes were filled with killing intent. Of course, his killing intent was not directed at Jiang Lu, but at everyone else. After all, Huang Jiuchong had been humiliated in the Youth Desolation meeting. And with his personality, once he was unhappy, he would kill everything. The Dragonman clan has the strongest physique. The disguised Jiang Lu looked somewhat handsome, but his slightly plump physique always gave people a simple and honest feeling. I'll crush you with one punch! Huang Jiuchong narrowed his eyes and took a step forward. His body was like a rainbow as he charged toward Jiang Lu in an instant. When his fist landed, the fist aura was like a roaring true dragon. Collapsing force, 1000! Jiang Lu let out a long howl as he too punched out. Blood chi exploded out around him like a cloud of blood. Boom! When the two fists collided, a thunderous explosion was heard. In the next instant, Jiang Lu's expression changed drastically. His body trembled as he took 3 steps back. To everyone's surprise, Huang Jiuchong was also sent flying by the recoil. He even took 5 steps back. The outcome of the battle was decided in a single move. What? Who's that fatty? How did he gain the upper hand after taking a punch from Huang Jiuchong? Exclamations were heard all around. No one had expected a nameless and inconspicuous fatty to be so powerful. Even Huang Jiuchong was stunned. His eyes were filled with shock and disbelief as he looked at his hand that was split open. I've seen the Dragonman clan's physique today. Jiang Lu raised his eyebrows. If I don't have any other tricks up my sleeve, I'll definitely win this battle. You're underestimating the Dragonman clan. Huang Jiuchong narrowed his eyes. A dragon roared from his body, and a 5-clawed golden dragon appeared behind him. Golden Dragon Dao Soul! Dao Hun! 5-clawed golden dragon! Exclamations erupted once again because the golden dragon Dao Soul was ranked in the top 20 among all the Dao Souls. It was one of the strongest Dao spirits. Together with the unique flesh of the 9th layer martial dominator realm, his strength had doubled. Alas! Jiang Chen sighed. He knew that Jiang Lu was indeed very strong now. However, there was one thing that Jiang Lu was lacking, and that was his lack of a Dao soul. Facing a 9th layer Emperor Realm cultivator with a Dao soul, Jiang Lu was at a disadvantage from the very beginning. However, looking at Jiang Lu's appearance, he didn't seem to care about this. At this moment, Jiang Lu's feet fiercely stomped on the ground, and his palms rose into the sky as if he wanted to hold up the world. The muscles and meridians on his body bulged like a dragon. His eyes were bloodshot, and his blood chi was torrential. Collapsing force, 1,000, 3,000. With a roar, Jianglu rushed out like a stream of light. Blood chi surged from his body as if he was covered in blood clouds. He punched out with his fists like two dragons playing with a pearl. Terrifying spiritual energy was contained within them, and blurry shadows flickered around him. At a closer look, those shadows were like broken worlds. A terrifying aura of the world erupted from Jianglu's body. Dragon's might! Huang Jiuchong shouted as a dragon's roar reverberated behind him. When he punched out, his palm turned into a dragon's claw, and golden rays of light shot up into the sky. However, when the two fists collided again, Huang Jiuchong's fist actually went through Jianglu's body. It was as if Jianglu's body had turned illusory. Jianglu's punch had landed squarely on Huang Jiuchong's body. Puff! Huang Jiuchong immediately spat out a mouthful of blood and staggered backward. Part of the golden light on his body was even dissipated. Even his chest had caved in. What's going on? Huang Jiuchong's fist missed? Impossible! With his strength, how could he make such a mistake? Many people exclaimed and rubbed their eyes hard. They couldn't believe what they were seeing. Even Jiang Chun was surprised. He clearly saw that Huang Jiuchong's fist had landed on Jianglu's body. But why did the fist pass through Jianglu's body in the end? 10 ghosts. One of the 10 ghosts, the samurai ghost's unique martial technique, the 3,000 great worlds. Suddenly, many people in the martial pavilion exclaimed. When they looked at Jianglu, their eyes were filled with shocking murderous intent. Even the host, Ho Tao, narrowed his eyes. An undetectable murderous intent appeared in the depths of his eyes. The 10 ghosts were the martial pavilion's most wanted criminals. The rumors are true. The successor of the 10 ghosts really came to participate in the Young Desolation meet. That fatty is the successor of the samurai ghost. Along with the exclamations, the place became even more rowdy. However, Jianglu didn't seem to hear them. When he opened and closed his eyes, rays of golden light swirled around them. He didn't give Huang Jiuchong a chance to catch his breath and punched out again. The blurry shadows around him became clearer and clearer. It was as if there were many great worlds gathering a majestic force. Along with the punch, the force landed with a loud bang and sent Huang Jiuchong flying again. At the same time, Huang Jiuchong's Dao soul was sent back into his body. His body trembled, and cracks even appeared on it. His hair fluttered in the wind, and blood flowed from the corner of his mouth. He was in a sorry state. It looks like the prince of the dragonkind, Huang Jiuchong, is going to lose to the successor of the samurai ghost today. As expected of the 10 ghosts. The disciples they teach are really powerful. At this moment, Huang Jiuchong was indifferent. He wasn't as arrogant as before. At this moment, he gave off a calm and steady feeling. The successor of the samurai ghost is qualified to make me use my full strength, Huang Jiuchong said coldly. Obscure runes suddenly appeared on his body. The runes flickered and burned. At the same time, the sound of shackles breaking could be heard from Huang Jiuchong's body. It's over. Jiang Chun couldn't help but mutter to himself in a low voice when he witnessed such a scene. He didn't wait for Huang Jiuchong to launch an attack. He spoke to Ho Tao directly. Can I use a fight waiver token to avoid the fight for that fatty? According to the rules, you can. Ho Tao nodded. After all, this was a rigid rule. As the host, he couldn't break the rules in front of so many people. As soon as he finished speaking, Jiang Chun didn't hesitate at all and chose to use the battle exemption token to help Jianglu avoid the battle. Battle exemption token. The samurai ghost wins. At this moment, Ho Tao announced the result of the battle without waiting for Huang Jiuchong to make a move. However, because it was a battle exemption token, although Jianglu won, Huang Jiuchong advanced to the next round. Chapter 277. Boss, what are you doing? Jianglu secretly transmitted with a puzzled expression. There's a seal in his body. Jiang Chun explained. Once the seal is removed, his strength will definitely surpass yours. After all, the gap between your levels is too great. Really? Jianglu frowned as if he didn't believe it. But I still want to fight him. There will be plenty of opportunities. Jiangchen smiled. If your levels are the same, or even similar, Huang Jiuchong will not be your match. Yeah, I think so too. Jianglu smiled, then returned to the floating platform and sat down cross-legged to meditate. Jiangchen! Are you going to oppose me to the end? At this moment, Huang Jiuchong was furious. After removing the seal, he wanted to suppress Jianglu with an extremely powerful stance. However, when the seal was halfway removed, Jiangchen interfered and used the battle avoidance order on Jianglu. Use the battle avoidance order if you can, Jiangchen mocked. But do you have it? Just you wait. Huang Jiuchong's eyes turned red as his chest heaved up and down. He was almost angered to death by Jiangchen. As the prince of the Draconian clan, he was respected and revered by many. However, ever since he came to the Young Desolate Association, Huang Jiuchong had been sullen. And the main source of his sullenness was Jiangchen. From the Heaven Desolate Tavern until now, Huang Jiuchong had been sullen. Lu Song and Wang Ting lost. Half an incense's time later, the third round came to an end. Out of the 5 from the Billow Institute, only 3 were left. Lu Song and Wang Ting lost not because they were weak, but because their opponents were too strong. Lu Song encountered Tian Shui and was taught a lesson by the Azure Dao Soul. He did not even have the chance to retaliate. Wang Ting faced a disciple of the Martial Pavilion. His opponent was an Upper Heaven Realm arcane master. After a series of arcane skills, Wang Ting lost. Even Dao Gui and Morning and Evening Wine barely won the third round. They were unable to suppress their opponents with brute force. How intense! Jiangchen whispered with a smile on his face. Old Qing had a strange expression on his face. He glanced at Jiangchen. This fellow hadn't even fought a single battle, yet he had entered the top 100. Jiang Lu and Huang Jiuchong advanced at the same time, while Jiangchen advanced to the next round. Thus, there were 52 people left. This meant that in the following matches, there would no longer be anyone with a bye. Although Huang Jiuchong felt aggrieved, he heaved a sigh of relief. After all, if there were an odd number of people, then there would definitely be one person who would get a bye. Huang Jiuchong would really have to eat sh*t this time if Jiangchen got the number again. Don't let me see you! Huang Jiuchong glared at Jiangchen and said coldly. When the time comes, I'll show you what I look like in my prime. Have you seen me in my prime? Jiangchen raised his eyebrows and said disdainfully. If we really meet, I'll let you know what it means to be invincible in your generation. I'm looking forward to it. Huang Jiuchong's eyes narrowed. Rest. We'll continue tomorrow, Ho Tao said. With a wave of his hand, the day's competition was considered to have ended. After all, the top 100 had been decided. The following battles would be the real battles between the geniuses. In such battles, everyone had to be in their prime to be comparable. There are too many ruthless people in this year's Youth Desolate meeting. After they went back to the hostel, Morning and Evening Wine went to look for Jiangchen. Wearing a gloomy expression, she said, Dao Gui and I almost lost. I saw it. Jiangchen nodded calmly. After all, he still had 2 battle exemption tokens and 2 chances to avoid the battles. At the very least, Jiangchen would be able to enter the top 13. Jiangchen was already satisfied with being in the top 13 of the Desolate meeting. After all, his cultivation level was there for all to see. The people in the Youth Desolate meeting were all geniuses. Their combat strength couldn't be measured by the standards of ordinary people. From the beginning, Jiangchen knew that it would be difficult for him to win this year's Youth Desolate meeting. Hence, from the beginning, Jiangchen's goal wasn't to lose, but to enter the top 100. Now that he had achieved his goal, Jiangchen didn't want to make a move. That disciple from the Martial Pavilion is a high-level Heaven Realm arcane master. He's proficient in lightning-type and water-type spells. He's too terrifying. Morning Wine said in a low voice. The stage is covered in water. When the lightning strikes, there's no place to hide. There's also that brat from Heaven and Earth Pavilion. He's an archer at the upper level of Heaven Realm. He keeps shooting from afar. Apart from the dense rain of arrows, I can't even see him clearly. Zhao Mujio's expression was solemn. Even though he was the successor of the freedom technique, he could feel the pressure. And Tian Shui, Jiangchen said softly, that little girl is very strong. If nothing unexpected happens, the champion of this year's Youth Desolate meeting should be her. Jiangchen said. Hearing these words, Morning Wine couldn't help but be taken aback. He didn't understand why Jiangchen would think so, although Morning Wine had seen Tian Shui's strength before. However, Morning and Evening Wine was surprised by Jiangchen's certainty. The Azura Dao soul has already evolved, Jiangchen explained. As for what rank it has evolved to, I can't tell. However, based on her current combat strength, the Azura Dao soul has evolved to at least rank 6. What did a rank 6 Azura Dao soul mean? In the world, there were rumors about Azuras. They were filled with mystery. According to legend, Azuras were the kings of hell. They had different forms. As for rank 6 Azuras, they were known as Azuras with 3 heads and 6 arms. Once an Azura Dao soul evolved to rank 6, its combat strength would undergo an earth-shattering change. Even Jiangchen didn't have the confidence to defeat Tian Shui if he didn't use any special methods. But forget it. After entering the top 100, I can enter the Desolate God training ground. Morning Wine muttered. The ranking isn't important. However, even though he said so, Jiangchen could see that Morning Wine, a monk who drank meat and drank wine, cared a lot about the ranking. Buddhism emphasized on cultivating one's body and mind. They didn't care about worldly fame and fortune. But Morning Wine was different. He fought for everything. If he wanted something, he would fight for it. If he didn't want it, he would let him do as he pleased. This kind of freedom, this kind of straightforwardness, was Morning Wine's Tao, great freedom. The successor of the martial ghost has also appeared. I wonder if the martial pavilion will take action against him. Morning Wine suddenly thought of something. He looked at Jiangchen and asked, Aren't you worried? Me? What am I worried about? Jiangchen blinked and asked, Are you worried that the martial pavilion will take action against me? Yes, the relationship between you and the martial pavilion can be said to be irreconcilable, Morning Wine said. Now, the martial pavilion's vice pavilion master is here. Elder Qing alone won't be able to protect you. If Elder Qing can't do it, then, Jiangchen said meaningfully, there's nothing to worry about. As for the successor of the martial ghost, Jiangchen chuckled. His successor is here. Do you think the martial ghost won't come? It wasn't easy for him to take in a disciple. He can't just let him grow, right? Hearing this, Morning Wine's pupils suddenly shrank. He suddenly realized that something big was going to happen in this year's Young Desolation meeting. If the martial ghost came, the martial pavilion would definitely take action with all their might to capture him. At that time, who knew what kind of battle would happen? Perhaps, more than one of the 10 ghosts would come. Chapter 278. There were 16 professions in the world. Excluding the extremely rare ones, the 10 ghosts were the most powerful people in the 16 professions. Also, although they were commonly known as the 10 ghosts, they were all saints. Those who had a grudge against the 10 ghosts would call them the 10 ghosts. Ordinary people would call them the 10 ghost sages, which were also the 10 saints. Among the 7 states, the barren state was the weakest. Saints were at the peak, and there were no godly state experts. Of course, that was what ordinary people thought. In the barren state, if something happened to a saint, it would be a big deal. Now, it was very likely that a saint would appear at the Young Desolate meeting, and a battle between saints might even break out. At that time, the sky of the barren state might change color. Zhao Mujio thought that the martial pavilion headquarters might have already sent experts, and even godly state experts might have already arrived at Tianhuang City. They just didn't show up. Of course, this was also a guess. In the end, The young desolate meeting's ultimate goal is to enter the desolate gods' training ground, Jiangchen explained. I don't want to participate in tomorrow's battle. Zhao Mujio was stunned for a moment, then revealed an envious expression. It's so good to have a waiver order. Boom! Boom! At that moment, thunderous battle waves suddenly came from the sky above the inn. Jiangchen and Zhao Mujio rushed out of the room. They looked up and saw Elder Qing and a masked man in black fighting fiercely. Elder Qing's body was covered in a layer of green light, like the aura of chaos. His hair was messy, and blood flowed from the corner of his mouth. His aura was like a rainbow. Looking at his opponent, his chest had caved in, and half the top of his head had been cut off. However, for people of their level, as long as their souls were not injured, even if the top of their head was cut off, they might not die. Since you're going to fight, why cover your face? Elder Qing's eyes narrowed. The green light in his palm exploded like thousands of sharp swords. Since you already know who I am, why bother asking? The man in black said coldly. The Qing Kong clan's chaos energy is indeed worthy of its reputation. You flatter me, Elder Qing said softly. With a wave of his hand, thousands of swords shot out, instantly drowning the man in black. Bang! However, the black-clothed man instantly turned into a cloud of black smoke and disappeared from the place. Humph! Elder Qing snorted coldly as he scanned his surroundings. Only after he was certain that the other party had disappeared did he descend to the ground. The martial pavilion has already begun. Elder Qing wiped away the blood at the corner of his mouth, came to Jiang Chen's side, and said in a serious voice, The Young Desolation meeting this time is not simple. The Shaohuang meeting is filled with experts. Almost all of the experts in the barren state have gathered here. Jiang Chen frowned and said, The martial pavilion really dares to violate the taboo of the world and attack a small cultivator like me in front of so many people? The martial pavilion is strong enough to disregard anyone's opinion. Elder Qing said in a deep voice, but his eyes were filled with determination. With me here, no one can touch you. Elder Qing. What about me? Morning and Evening Wine asked. You. Elder Qing glanced at Morning Wine. Little Tianzhu doesn't want to see you die either. After all, you are the first person to comprehend the great freedom technique in the past few thousand years. But what if little Tianzhu wants to take me back? Morning and Evening Wine asked meekly. Will you help me? Since you are a disciple of the Wave Academy, I will naturally help you, Elder Qing said seriously. As soon as he said that, Dao Gui walked over from the side with a smile. He cupped his hands at Elder Qing and said, When the people from above heavens come, I will have to trouble Elder Qing to help me block them. Elder Qing was speechless. Protecting Jiang Chen was already tiring enough. He didn't expect that Dao Gui and Morning and Evening Wine would also need his protection. However, when he thought of Dao Gui and Morning and Evening Wine's identities, Elder Qing felt a headache coming on. One was the successor of the Buddhist sacred land, Little Tianzhu, while the other was the successor of the Taoist sacred land, Above Heavens. Both of them were the same. They had betrayed their sex for their own Tao. Usually, the two of them stayed in the Wave Academy. Little Tianzhu and Above Heavens didn't dare to attack the Wave Academy and ask for them. However, once they left the Wave Academy, it would be hard to say. The Wave Academy has already sent people to help me, Elder Qing said. It should be fine. At most, I will ask the Elder to help. Elder Qing? Jiang Chen asked curiously. What level is Elder Qing at? Elder Qing shook his head and said, I'm not sure. The Elder hasn't appeared in the world for a long time. No one knows what level he has reached, but he shouldn't be weaker than Ho Tao, the pillar of the Qing clan, the legendary Elder Qing of the Barren State. Nowadays, very few people could remember the name Elder Qing. Because Elder Qing rarely appeared in the world, the people of the Barren State had almost forgotten that there was an Elder Qing in the Barren State. If it really gets to the point where Elder Qing has to help, this matter will definitely blow up. Elder Qing sighed. I hope things won't get to that point. With that, Elder Qing turned and returned to his room. He began to heal himself. Jiang Chen also returned to his room and began to cultivate. Time also passed slowly. Until the latter half of the night, Jiang Chen, who was originally cultivating, suddenly opened his eyes. In his pupils, the light of the sun and moon flickered. His body even emitted the aura of the heavenly tribulation. The second soul is cultivated to the Mahayana level. It's about to undergo the heavenly tribulation, Jiang Chen said with a bitter smile. This time, Jiang Chen didn't need to form the lightning guiding talisman at all to attract the heavenly tribulation. However, Jiang Chen stopped cultivating and forcibly suppressed the heavenly tribulation. It was because it was too conspicuous to undergo the heavenly tribulation here. Moreover, Jiang Chen could feel that the heavenly tribulation this time was very terrifying. Even if he passed it, he would be injured. At that time, if he was slightly careless, he might be taken advantage of by others. What a coincidence that the heavenly tribulation has to come at this time. Looks like I can't make a move tomorrow. Jiang Chen sighed. Forcefully suppressing the heavenly tribulation meant that he had frozen all of his power so that the heavenly tribulation couldn't sense him. This way, if Jiang Chen made a move, the power in his body would erupt, and the heavenly tribulation would descend. And this wasn't what Jiang Chen hoped for. Moreover, he had the exemption order anyway. Jiang Chen had 2 chances to be exempted tomorrow. I hope no one forces me, Jiang Chen thought to himself with a faint smile on his lips. The night passed uneventfully until morning. When the morning sun shone on the ground, a melodious bell rang in the heavenly desolate city. This was the Young Desolate Association summoning all the participants to gather at the City Lord Mansion. Something big has happened! Just as he came out of his room, Morning Wine appeared in front of Jiang Chen with a grave expression. That disciple of the Martial Pavilion was assassinated last night. What? At this moment, even Jiang Chen was moved. Who would be so bold to assassinate the top disciple of the Martial Pavilion in the Young Desolate Association? That was a peerless prodigy that the Martial Pavilion had painstakingly nurtured, and he had specially come for the Young Desolate Association. I'm not sure. Even Ho Tao didn't sense it, Morning Wine said in a low voice. The assassin is at least in the saint realm. He's a saint killer. Many others were also assassinated last night, but they all survived, Morning Wine said. Only we framed? Jiang Chen's heart tightened. He had a bad premonition. Many prodigies had been assassinated last night. Only the inn they were in was calm, and no one was injured. This matter couldn't be hidden. And once it spread, what would others think? Chapter 279. Walking out of the inn, Jiang Chen felt that the atmosphere was somewhat stifling. Especially when many people looked at their party, not only did their eyes carry suspicion, but they were also filled with killing intent. What a good framing! Jiang Chen's heart tightened. Glancing at Elder Qing beside him, his expression was also very ugly. No need to worry, Elder Qing said softly. This matter is very big. Without real evidence, no one dares to make a move against us. I'm just afraid that someone is adding fuel to the fire behind the scenes, Jiang Chen said solemnly. Advancing all the way until they arrived at the City Lord Manor, Ho Tao stood in the air. There was even a man standing beside him. This person was precisely the Heaven and Earth Pavilion's assistant pavilion lord, Li Yuan. The Young Desolate meeting had always been hosted by the Martial Pavilion and Heaven and Earth Pavilion. Li Yuan did not appear in yesterday's competition. Presumably, he was not interested in this kind of competition. But today was the last day of the Young Desolate meeting. Li Yuan naturally had to come out and show his face. Furthermore, because of last night's incident, Li Yuan was also full of vexation. I believe everyone knows about last night's incident. The Martial Pavilion and Heaven and Earth Pavilion have already intervened and are currently searching for the real culprit, Li Yuan said solemnly. Once found, the entire clan and sect will be exterminated. The moment these words came out, the entire City Lord Manor fell silent. exterminating the entire clan and sect. This was equivalent to exterminating the clan. If this matter was done by someone from an academy, then the entire academy would be exterminated. Regardless of whether you were a disciple or an elder, as long as you were a member of the academy, all had to die. This was the highest level of the kill warrant. Since 6,000 years ago, the kill warrant has never been used. Looks like this time, the Martial Pavilion and Heaven and Earth Pavilion are all enraged. Everyone was moved. There were even some people whose faces were as black as ink. After all, who did not know who the assassin last night was? What if it was someone from their faction? At that time, they would be implicated together. The competition will begin as usual. Several breaths later, Ho Tao opened his mouth and announced the start of the competition. And Jiang Chen still planned on using the battle exemption token. He still had 2 battle exemption tokens in his hands, enough to advance into the top 50. However, when he saw Bai Fengyu's opponent, he could not help smiling bitterly. Because Jiang Lu and Bai Fengyu were actually fighting. Vice Pavilion Master Ho Tao, I will use a battle exemption writ to exempt Bai Fengyu from the battle, Jiang Chen said as he handed over a battle exemption writ. In this way, Jiang Lu and Bai Fengyu both advanced. At this point, Jiang Chen was left with the last battle exemption command. This meant that in this battle, Jiang Chen would either have to fight personally or use the last battle exemption command. You! Get down here! At that moment, Huang Jiucheng's arrogant voice was heard. In his hand was a stick with the number 1 written on it. And the lot in Jiang Chen's hand was precisely number 52. You insist on seeking death! Jiang Chen was also enraged, and originally wanted to use the battle avoidance order. He had never thought that he would encounter an Emperor Realm 9 Dan in this battle. Jiang Chen naturally wouldn't back down since there was already a grudge between them. As the sound of his voice faded, Jiang Chen took a step forward and soared through the air. In a few breaths' time, he arrived at the battle ring. An honorable state against a heaven state. An ordinary person against a dragon Emperor Realm 9 Dan? There's nothing to see in this battle. Jiang Chen is destined to lose. Many people thought to themselves, and many people didn't look at the battle ring where Jiang Chen was. This was because in their eyes, the gap between Jiang Chen and Huang Jiucheng was too big. There was no suspense in this battle at all. I'll kill you! At that moment, Huang Jiucheng roared furiously, and the anger that he had suppressed in his heart completely exploded. Behind him, the golden dragon Dao spirit appeared, and its dragon's might was vast and mighty. As it roared, a dragon's breath that was like a raging fire spewed toward Jiang Chen. Heavenly dance of light and darkness! Jiang Chen didn't dare to be careless. Black and white light flickered on his body, and sword chi circled around him. The heavenly swords of light and darkness floated in his hands. His arms danced, and sword flowers bloomed. Like a phantom, he charged forward. Everywhere he passed, sword chi exploded and turned the dragon's breath into powder. Then, a cold light shot out, and the heavenly swords of light and darkness shot toward Huang Jiucheng's glabella. In his other hand, the heavenly sword of light was dazzling, and it slashed toward Huang Jiucheng's waist. What's there to be afraid of? Huang Jiucheng narrowed his eyes and pushed his hand forward. The dragon's strength was like a tsunami, and it shook the entire battle ring. Crack! Following 2 crisp sounds, the heavenly swords of light and darkness in Jiang Chen's hands shattered, and he was pushed back by more than 10 steps. However, at the same time, the light of the sun and moon flickered in Jiang Chen's eyes, and a solar eclipse and a lunar eclipse burst out at the same time. The moonlight was as cold as frost, and the sunlight was as bright as Buddha's radiance. Both attacks bombarded Huang Jiucheng's body. He can still fight? Huang Jiucheng was hit. At that moment, exclamations were heard. Some people even saw a wound on Huang Jiucheng's shoulder, and golden blood dripped down from it. You've got guts. Huang Jiucheng was enraged. The golden dragon Daoist soul behind him suddenly emitted rays of divine light and disappeared. Then, a battle armor appeared on Huang Jiucheng's body, and there was a golden dragon head on his chest. His skin and face were covered with a layer of dragon scales. His hair danced in the wind like the whiskers of a dragon. "I'll show you my complete form." Huang Jiuchong narrowed his eyes. "I'm invincible among my peers." Boolsh *T. Jiangqin shouted coldly and used all the 9 words of battle. 9 rays of light surrounded his body, and his speed and strength reached the maximum. He moved horizontally and appeared behind Huang Jiuchong in the blink of an eye. He raised his palm, and the yin-yang in 4 divisions rotated in his palm like the 8 trigrams. Then, he slammed it down on Huang Jiuchong. However, Huang Jiuchong did not even turn his head. He raised his hand and slapped backward. Boom! The 2 palms collided, and there was a deafening explosion that sounded like thunder. Under everyone's shocked gazes, Jiangqin flew backward like a kite with a broken string. However, he managed to stabilize his body halfway. Blood flowed out from the corner of his mouth. However, no one was looking at Jiangqin. Everyone's eyes were filled with shock as they looked at Huang Jiuchong's back. That was because there was a palm print on his back that was covered with dragon scales. The battle armor was dented, and a few dragon scales had fallen off. His complete form was destroyed. The human dragon complete form that is said to be invincible was destroyed just like that. Many people turned pale and cried out in alarm. Even Huang Jiuchong himself could not believe it. The human dragon complete form had shocking defensive power, and his body was covered by the battle armor formed by the golden dragon Taoist soul. Even with such defensive power, he could not block the palm of Jiangqin, a cultivator in the supremacy realm. Earth type, lock of 8 directions. Water type, queen of water. At that moment, Jiangqin made a series of hand seals with both hands. Chains made of thick earth burst out and wrapped around Huang Jiuchong's body. Then, a bucket of heavy rain poured down from the sky like a river, drowning Huang Jiuchong. Chapter 280. The combination of the earth and water spells turned the arena into a swamp. He was chained up by the thick soil chains, trapped in the swamp, and rained heavily on the ground. If it were anyone else, they would have been suppressed. However, Huang Jiuchong was really strong. He was surrounded by roaring dragon breath and raging flames. Even though he was trapped in the swamp, he was still waving his fists. His fists were as bright as the sun. The chains on his body could not restrict his movements at all. Dragon flames burst out from his mouth. Together with the fists, a scorching aura spread out and evaporated the rain into steam. Even the swamp began to dry up. In the end, the water and soil magical techniques were completely nullified. However, when the 2 spells were broken, Jiangqin had already formed a hand seal. Boom! With a loud explosion, the purple lightning struck the top of Huang Jiuchong's head. This time, Huang Jiuchong screamed in agony. Blood flowed out of his 7 orifices, and many of the dragon scales on his body fell off. However, Huang Jiuchong was too strong. He punched out and shattered the second lightning bolt. Then, he charged out like a ferocious dragon. Seal! However, before he could reach Jiangqin, many doctrine talismans appeared out of thin air, and a tactical formation appeared. The space inside the spell formation was distorted, and there were flashes of light. It was as if time and space had frozen. Huang Jiuchong was trapped in the spell formation and could not move at all. Dragon's aura! However, in the next second, Huang Jiuchong roared. A mighty dragon's aura burst out like an invisible gust of wind. In an instant, the spell formation was shattered. He took another step forward and threw his fist straight at Jiangqin's face. Seal! However, when his fists were 3 inches away from Jiangqin, a spell formation appeared in front of Jiangqin. The spell formation was in the shape of a hexagram. The sun and the moon shone brightly, and there were also cryptic talismans that shone like stars. This time, Huang Jiuchong was trapped again. How many professions is this guy proficient in? Spells, formations, and barriers. From the looks of it, he should also be very good at martial arts. It was hard to imagine how a person could be proficient in so many professions at the same time. While the crowd was still in shock, a pair of dragon wings unfurled on Huang Jiucheng's back. Under the flapping of the dragon wings, a gust of wind swept up, and the barrier collapsed. Die! Huang Jiucheng roared and punched out with both fists. His fists were like two dragon heads, landing squarely in front of Jiang Chen's face. Bang! However, with a muffled sound, Jiang Chen's body collapsed and turned into dust. Illusion? Huang Jiucheng was shocked. He sensed something and quickly moved to the side. However, his movements were still a beat too slow. On his left, Jiang Chen's real body appeared. A cold glow flickered on his fingertip and pierced Huang Jiucheng's chest like a needle. Boom! With an ear-piercing explosion, the crowd saw the dragon scales on Huang Jiucheng's body shattering. Even the armor on Huang Jiucheng's body was cracked. Huang Jiucheng, admit that you are very powerful. However, this is the end of it. Huang Jiucheng's eyes were burning with anger. He stretched out his hand and a dragon bone appeared in his hand. The dragon bone was like a sword, slashing toward Jiang Chen. Instantly, the dragon's shadow and the sword's shadow overlapped, as though they were going to tear the space apart. Barrier, solidify! Formation, imprison! Jiang Chen didn't dare to be careless. He activated his barrier and formation consecutively, and two light screens rose in front of him. However, the two light screens were like paper under the sword light of the dragon bone, and they were instantly cut into pieces. Then, the sword didn't slow down, and went straight for Jiang Chen's glabella. Buzz! Just as the sword was about to hit Jiang Chen, the crowd realized that Jiang Chen had suddenly disappeared. Concealment? He's also proficient in the art of assassination? What the F***ck? Don't tell me he's proficient in all professions? The crowd was dumbfounded. Jiang Chen had used at least 5 different techniques since the start of the battle. Now, he was using the concealment technique that only dark masters knew. So what? The arena is only so big. Where can you hide? Huang Jiucheng took a deep breath and exhaled. Roar! An earth-shattering dragon roar exploded. The sound waves rolled out like waves and covered the entire arena. Puff! In the next second, Jiang Chen's body was pushed out from the edge of the arena. At the same time, he spat out a mouthful of blood. The difference in cultivation is too big. On top of that, he has the body of a human dragon. It's really difficult to deal with him, Jiang Chen thought to himself. He didn't wipe the blood off the corner of his mouth. Yin-yang pupil, eyes of sun and moon. Within 3 breaths, Jiang Chen roared and the light of the sun and moon shot out from his eyes. At the same time, the sun and moon appeared in the sky at the same time. A majestic aura descended from the sky. As if the sun and moon were falling, Huang Jiucheng's battle suit was completely destroyed by the aura. Even his Dao soul was forced back into his body. Huang Jiucheng's body was trembling, and his dragon scales were breaking. In the end, his body of a human dragon was completely destroyed. There's a difference of 2 major realms between them, but his body of a human dragon was destroyed? This? If they fight at the same cultivation level, won't Huang Jiucheng be suppressed? The exclamations never stopped. Some people even thought that if Jiang Chen won this battle, where would Huang Jiucheng put his face? The prince of the human dragon race had the body of a human dragon, and was 2 major realms higher than Jiang Chen. Huang Jiucheng couldn't suppress Jiang Chen despite having such an advantage. Looking at the current situation, Huang Jiucheng was obviously at a disadvantage. I'll give you a chance, Jiang Chen said coldly. When he opened his eyes, the sun and moon rose and fell. It was as if he was going to dominate the universe. As I said before, apologize to young Lord Qin and young Lord Luo. Huang Jiucheng's face was as black as ink when he heard that. His eyes were filled with killing intent. Apologize? Was that even possible? Huang Jiucheng, admit that you're strong, Huang Jiucheng said coldly. However, don't think that you can defeat me with that. Dragon, come! Huang Jiuchong waved his hand at the sky. The dragon's might and dragon's breath exploded and shot into the clouds like a rainbow. Roar! Suddenly, a loud dragon's roar exploded in the clouds. Following that, a pitch-black dragon with 3 horns on its head swooped down. Huang Jiuchong flew into the sky. The dragon's bone in his hand turned into a long spear as he stood on the 3-horned dragon. Dragon Knight! This is Huang Jiuchong's strongest trump card. Dragon Knight! Everyone exclaimed, and their expressions changed drastically. Especially when they saw the 3-horned dragon, everyone felt like they were mere ants. You're 2 major realms lower than me, but you're able to force me to use my strongest card. If you don't die after this battle, your name will spread throughout the barren state, Huang Jiuchong said arrogantly. If you beg for mercy, I can spare your life. Chapter 281. No one had expected Huang Jiuchong to be so powerful. He was a rare dragon knight. The dragon clan was proud and would not become someone's mount under normal circumstances. Therefore, it was impossible for ordinary people to become a dragon knight. Moreover, even if one had a true dragon as a mount, it was difficult to become a dragon knight. That was because one could only become a dragon knight when one's heart and soul were connected to a true dragon. I, Huang Jiuchong, will definitely become the leader of the Young Baron Association. Huang Jiuchong became more and more arrogant. After all, he had used his strongest trump card. He was confident that he would be invincible among his peers. However, Jiang Qin had a strange expression on his face. That was because Huang Jiuchong's Triceratops was not a true dragon, but a semi-dragon. The true dragon's bloodline was not pure. It had 3 horns on its head and a flat tail. It was a far cry from a true dragon. Perhaps this Triceratops would be able to shed its mortal body and become a true dragon after a few more years of cultivation. But now, in Jiang Chen's eyes, it was just a 3-horned lizard. Is this your strongest trump card? Jiang Chen raised his eyebrows and said mockingly. Dragon Knight, right? As you can see. Huang Jiuchong raised his eyebrows. Admit defeat and submit to me, and I will spare your life. Let me think, Jiang Chen said with a smile. However, he was communicating with Nian Chang'e telepathically in his mind. Nian Chang'e, bring my little dragon here, Jiang Chen said telepathically. Now? Where to? Nian Chang'e asked. She was rather upset. After all, she had just brought the little dragon back to the heavenly temple a few days ago. If Jiang Chen was going back, why did she have to send it here? The city governor's mansion of the Tianhuang city, Jiang Chen said telepathically. The heavenly temple has the ability to open a space tunnel, right? Just throw it out of the portal. Okay, Nian Chang'e replied. Buzz. 5 breaths later, the space above the Tianhuang city cracked open, and a light portal appeared. Then, Long Dade was thrown out of the light portal. Come here and talk to your descendants about life. Jiang Chen waved at Long Dade. What descendant? Long Dade was only as thick as an arm, but his face was arrogant as he stared at Jiang Chen from the corner of his eyes. His face darkened when he saw the Triceratops that Huang Jiuchong was riding on. Who the hell has such a descendant? Long Dade exploded in anger and said, I am the ancestral dragon. How could my descendant be an alternative dragon? Then who knows what kind of sin your descendant's descendant committed? Otherwise, how could there be alternative dragons in this world? Jiang Chen ridiculed. You're messing around, aren't you? Long Dade was stunned when he heard this. His young face blushed. The True Dragon clan, especially the ancestral dragon True Dragons, had always been very casual. After all, standing at the top of all living beings, the ancestral dragon had the absolute right to mate. As a result, there were many strange wyverns in the world. Of course, the True Dragon race would never admit such a thing. It was an insult to the ancestral dragon. Get lost! Who gave you the courage to call yourself a dragon? Long Dade looked at the Triceratops with disdain. His young voice sounded old and his dragon whiskers stood up as he shouted. Who do you think you are? Get lost! Woo! Although the Triceratops was an alternative dragon, there was still a trace of the true dragon bloodline in its body. Therefore, the moment Long Dade appeared, the Triceratops was terrified. The hierarchy of the true dragon race was very strict. Even though Long Dade was born not long ago, and his cultivation was low, the Triceratops did not dare to fight back. It did not even dare to look at Long Dade. Just like that, Huang Jiucheng's mount whined a few times before it turned around and left while the crowd was still dumbfounded. Huang Jiucheng was left behind with a confused look on his face. Is that your strongest trump card? Now, your dragon is gone, Jiangchen said mockingly. Do you still want to fight? I will kill you! Huang Jiucheng snapped out of his daze. Although he had lost his dragon, he was still very powerful. With the advantage of his cultivation base, Huang Jiucheng did not think that he would lose to Jiangchen. However, just as Huang Jiucheng finished his sentence, the Emperor's vines appeared behind Jiangchen. As Huang Jiucheng made a hand seal, the vines turned into thousands of arms and slammed down on Huang Jiucheng. At the same time, a loud cry was heard. An undying bird that was covered in flames charged out from Jiangchen's body. It was like a fiery blade that shot across the sky and landed on Huang Jiucheng's body. Poof! Poof! Huang Jiucheng spat out 3 mouthfuls of blood. His entire body was entangled by the vines. His shoulders and thighs were pierced by a few vines. His waist was slashed open by the undying bird. If it were not for the strong defense of the dragon man's body, they would have been slashed in half. Jiucheng Rashoman! At this moment, Jiangchen would not give Huang Jiucheng a chance to catch his breath. He made a hand seal with both hands and pressed them against the ground. Buzz! Boom! Amidst the rumbling, 9 enormous and ancient doors rose from the ground and charged at the Huang 9 layer in the sky. The 9 doors formed the 9 palaces and trapped Huang Jiucheng inside. Beams of mystic light that were as sharp as swords and sabers shot out from the doors. I admit defeat! At this moment, Huang Jiucheng's face turned pale. He could feel the aura of death looming over him. He had no choice. He did not want to die here, so he could only lower his head and admit defeat. Huang Jiucheng lost. He lost! He lost to a cultivator in the venerable realm. That's the prince of the Dragon Man tribe, a Heaven Realm Dragon Knight. How could he lose just like that? At this moment, exclamations shook the sky. Even the older generation was shocked. In the sky not far away, Ho Tao's eyes narrowed. He did not expect this outcome. Poof! Beside Ho Tao, Li Yuan's chest heaved up and down. He almost spat out a mouthful of blood. I hate him! If I knew this would happen, I wouldn't have sent him to Billow Academy. Li Yuan felt bitter and regretful. Since you've admitted defeat, you should know what to do next, right? Jiangchen raised his eyebrows and stared at Huang Jiucheng. I, Huang Jiucheng, apologize to young Lord Qin and young Lord Luo. I'm sorry! Huang Jiucheng's voice was loud, and his expression was arrogant. Although he had lost, it did not change Huang Jiucheng's character. Moreover, Huang Jiucheng was arrogant and could afford to lose. Just like what he had said to Jiangchen earlier, he would only submit to those who were stronger than him. If Jiangchen was stronger than him, he would submit to him. If he submitted to him, he would listen to Jiangchen. That was all. As for asking Huang Jiucheng to give up his arrogant attitude and change his arrogant character, that was impossible. Hey! Who the hell is undergoing the heavenly tribulation here? This is Tianhuang City, the city governor's mansion. There are so many people here. Who's undergoing the heavenly tribulation? Are you trying to drag us all into this? Suddenly, someone cursed angrily. A 9-colored tribulation cloud had appeared above the city governor's mansion. Chapter 282. The 9-colored tribulation cloud was the 9 destruction heavenly tribulation, also known as the 9 destruction of the Great Tao. This kind of heavenly tribulation had rarely appeared since ancient times. In the past 10,000 years, no one had survived it. And now, the 9 destruction heavenly tribulation had appeared in the sky above the city lord's mansion. Once the heavenly tribulation fell, everyone in Tianhuang City would be implicated, let alone the city lord's mansion. By then, how many of them could survive the 9 destruction heavenly tribulation? It's not mine! Jiangchen mumbled guiltily, but the aura of the heavenly tribulation could not escape everyone's eyes. At the same time, Jiangchen was panicking. He did not expect that the heavenly tribulation this time would be the 9 destruction heavenly tribulation. The 9 destruction heavenly tribulation destroyed the 6 paths and destroyed the 3 realms. How many of them could survive it? Even in his previous life, Jiangchen did not survive the 9 destruction heavenly tribulation. Jiangchen? Your heavenly tribulation? Are you crazy? Hurry up and leave! Leave Tianhuang City! The group of people cursed and retreated, unwilling to be too close to Jiangchen, afraid that they would be implicated. Even those experts, the elders and sect masters of the various sects and forces, were flustered as they hurriedly flew into the distance. What kind of joke was this? This was the 9 destruction heavenly tribulation. Once it touched him, he would be severely injured even if he did not die. Get out of here! Ho Tao shouted angrily at Jiangchen. He didn't look good at all. I can't leave! Jiangchen smiled bitterly and helplessly. This was because once the 9 destruction heavenly tribulation appeared, it locked onto him. Moreover, around Jiangchen, barriers of the great Tao had appeared, blocking his way. Now, Jiangchen was trapped within 100 feet, and his freedom of movement was restricted. He could not leave the city lord's mansion at all, let alone leave Tianhuang City. Everyone, retreat quickly! Ho Tao said hurriedly. Beside him, Li Yuan also looked terrible. He waved his hand and sent a large group of people out of the city. However, the heavenly desolate city was so large that it was impossible to evacuate everyone in such a short time. Once the 9 destruction heavenly tribulation struck, most of the living beings in Tianhuang City would be struck to death. In fact, under the 9 destruction heavenly tribulation, even the heavenly barren city would be destroyed. I said, "You can't blame me. It was Huang Jiuchong who insisted on fighting me." Jiang Chen's face darkened. Now, helping me is the same as helping yourselves. Bullshit! This is your own heavenly tribulation. Why should we help you? A sect's great elder angrily rebuked as he led his sect's disciples and flew out of the city. What a sin! You're only in the exalt realm, yet you're able to attract the 9 destruction heavenly tribulation. Did you do something wrong? One of the clan leaders was furious. His left hand was holding a disciple, his right hand was dragging another, and he was carrying another on his back. 2 more were sitting on his shoulders. His face was flush red as he ran out of the city, panting heavily. The heavenly barren city is so big. No matter how fast you are, it'll take you half an hour to get out of the city from the city lord's residence. Jiangchen said softly. Even if everyone here leaves, what about the others in the city? Kid, you're committing a sin, Li Yuan said in a low voice. If the heavenly tribulation destroys the heavenly barren city and all the living beings in the city, do you know how heavy your sin will be? I know, Jiangchen said innocently. But I don't want to, so you can only help me. Are we going to help or not? If we don't help, the entire heavenly barren city will be gone. At this moment, the leaders of various sects, clans, and forces were gathered together to discuss. Help. Help first. The heavenly barren city has been standing since ancient times. There are too many things hidden here. The heavenly barren city is the symbol of the barren state. It can't collapse just like that. There are many living beings in the heavenly barren city. If all of them die, it'll be a great sin. How can we not help? Those brats of mine haven't escaped from the heavenly barren city yet. The big shots had dark expressions. In the end, they had to agree to help Jiangchen transcend the tribulation. Even Ho Tao and Li Yuan didn't leave. Obviously, they were going to help Jiangchen transcend the tribulation. They couldn't help it. They couldn't watch the heavenly barren city be destroyed, nor could they watch the living beings in the city be killed by the 9 destruction heavenly tribulation. Backdoor Dunjia, alternate world. At this moment, a man in a black robe made a series of hand seals with both hands. Runes shone brightly like stars. The runes jumped and gathered, finally turning into a huge formation that covered the entire heavenly barren city. This was a secret technique of the Empress's family. The alternate world could transport all kinds of energy, materials, and even living beings into an alternate world. Heaven origin mystical gate, rock, earth, wind, and sand. Then, another person made a move. It was one of the mystical gate Dunjia. In an instant, huge rocks appeared out of thin air in the sky. A layer of wind and sand gathered in the sky like a dark cloud, blocking the sky above the heavenly barren city. Following that, many people started to cast all kinds of weapons, armors, formations, restrictive spells, and spirit barriers at the same time. Ho Tao also made a move. The sky measuring ruler in his hand rose into the sky and enlarged rapidly. Like a stabilizing needle, it stopped between the tribulation cloud and the heavenly barren city. Li Yuan made a hand seal with both hands. A sage's decree rose from his body. The power of the sage turned into divine light and enhanced the rocks and sand. Elder Qing, why don't you make a move? That's your disciple. Old man? Why are you standing there? A few seconds later, a few people saw Elder Qing standing on the side. He didn't move at all. How can I move? Someone fought with me yesterday, and I'm already injured. I can't even move a finger now. Elder Qing said grumpily and looked at Ho Tao meaningfully. Humph! Ho Tao snorted and didn't say anything. He made another hand seal. This time, the city defense array of the heavenly desolate city rose, along with thousands of restrictive spells and dozens of enchantments. With all kinds of enhancements, the heavenly barren city was like a fortress. It was more like an indestructible rock. However, there was one thing that needed to be emphasized. Jiangchen didn't have any enhancements on him. Hey, if I can't pass the tribulation, you guys won't have it easy either, Jiangchen said in a low voice. Quick! Give me some enhancements. Who do you think you are? If it weren't for you, we wouldn't have to take the risk here and endure the 9 destruction tribulation. You can die. We just need to protect the heavenly barren city and the living beings in the city. As for you, you can die on your own. The leaders of some sects and schools shouted in anger. When they looked towards Jiangchen, they were gnashing their teeth in anger, as if they wished they could swallow him alive. Even if I die, I'll drag a few of you down with me. Jiangchen was also angry. He knew that with his strength, even if he used a forbidden technique, it would be difficult for him to pass the 9 destruction tribulation. If that was the case, then, let's die together. After all, a few people here were his enemies. It was not bad to take revenge before death. Chapter 283. Then let's die together! Jiangchen was ruthless and formed 6 lightning guiding talismans in succession. Don't! Let's talk nicely! Fellow Taoist! Stop! Little brother! Brother! Take it easy! We'll help you, okay? In an instant, the group of people panicked. Even Ho Tao and Li Yuan trembled. There was already a 9 destruction heavenly tribulation. If Jiangchen attracted 6 more heavenly tribulations, then not to mention Tianhuang City, even the few of them would die here. Are you helping or not? Jiangchen raised his eyebrows. As he spoke, he formed another 6 lightning guiding talismans. At this moment, the group of people was completely speechless. Without another word, they took out all kinds of defensive armors and threw them in front of Jiangchen. There were also people who set up array formations and used secret techniques to augment Jiangchen's body. In just a few breaths, Jiangchen's entire body shone with divine light. That was countless array formations and restrictions on his body. That was the brilliance of countless armors. To be honest, I'm still a little weak, Jiangchen muttered. Very few people have transcended the 9 destruction heavenly tribulation since ancient times. You guys only augment me so little. With that, Jiangchen formed 18 lightning guiding talismans again. Brat! Apart from the lightning guiding talismans, can you form anything else? F***CK. Lightning guiding talismans again. The group of big shots was dumbfounded, their foreheads covered in cold sweat. One had to know that it was very difficult for ordinary people, even 9-star talisman masters, to form lightning guiding talismans. After all, these were talismans that could attract heavenly tribulation. Even if they could form them, it was impossible to form so many at once. A single lightning guiding talisman required a large amount of spirit energy. For ordinary people, forming 2 at once was already the limit. I also know many talismans, Jiangchen said softly. His hands formed seals one after another, and a talisman flickering with lightning took shape. At this moment, the group of people completely broke down. Because this talisman that Jiangchen formed was a heavenly wrath talisman. Everyone knew that the power of heavenly retribution was much stronger than heavenly tribulation. Do you want a few more? Jiangchen asked. No! Enough! Hurry up and dispel the talisman. I'll help you, okay? The group was terrified. Even Ho Tao and Li Yuan were dumbfounded. Their bodies couldn't help but tremble a few times. The 9 destruction heavenly tribulation, together with so many lightning summoning runes, and a few more heavenly punishments, would probably destroy everything within 1,000 square kilometers, not just the heavenly desolate city. Wind Empress Chi Men, aged metal war god armor. Ho Tao's face darkened as he reluctantly put on a layer of pure gold armor for Jiangchen. Soon after, Li Yuan appeared. His hands danced in front of him, and a Taiji diagram actually manifested. The yin and yang Taichi reversed. It was like a millstone, floating above Jiangchen's head. Following that, dozens of formations and barriers rose around Jiangchen. There were even several bottles of spirit pills and miraculous medicines that were delivered to Jiangchen. Little brother, don't die. Everything can be discussed after transcending this 9 destruction heavenly tribulation. Stop fooling around, transcend the 9 destruction heavenly tribulation in peace. Hurry up and dispel the other talismans. It's scary just looking at them. The group of people's faces were dark, and their tones were weaker. It could be said that they were begging Jiangchen. Since you all said so, then I'll give you all face, Jiangchen said with a smile. Boom! Just as his voice fell, one 9-colored lightning after another descended from the 9-colored tribulation cloud. 9 bolts of lightning descended at once, as if 9 different colored true dragons. In an instant, the sky changed color, and the ground was shaking. In fact, the buildings in the heavenly desolate city were collapsing continuously under such power. Fortunately, everyone joined forces and stabilized the impact of the heavenly tribulation. As for Jiangchen, he was even more relaxed at this moment. He just stood there and allowed the heavenly tribulation to strike his body. He did not move at all, nor was he hurt at all. Everyone, thank you for your hard work, Jiangchen said with a smile. With so many protections around him, the 9 destruction heavenly tribulation could not hurt him at all. As for Ho Tao and the others, they had their own means and were not implicated by the heavenly tribulation. As a result, the people in the city could only see 9 colors in the sky, as if fireworks were blooming. Daddy, look at the fireworks in the sky. It's so beautiful. A pink little girl stood under the eaves of her house, her eyes shining brightly. Yes, the heavenly desolate city has not been so lively in a long time. It's so beautiful. A group of people who did not know what was going on stood on the street and looked up to admire the brilliant fireworks. Although the fireworks were brilliant, Ho Tao and the others suffered. That was because the 9 destruction heavenly tribulation was too terrifying. They had no idea how many layers of the formations and barriers in the heavenly desolate city had been shattered. Helpless, they could only continue to form hand seals, set up formations, and strengthen the barriers and formations. Half an hour later, the group of big shots were covered in sweat, and their bodies were weak. The spiritual energy in their bodies was almost depleted. Even the saint's decree that Li Yuan took out was almost destroyed by the heavenly tribulation. After another half an hour, someone could not hold on any longer and asked, "You haven't gone through the tribulation yet?" "Soon," Jiangchen said with a smile. "This is the third heavenly tribulation. You'll be fine after having some fun." "What? It's already the third heavenly tribulation?" At this moment, the group of people was dumbfounded. Then they understood. They were wondering why a 9-destruction heavenly tribulation would last so long. It turned out that this was already the third F*King 9-destruction heavenly tribulation. "Everyone, come on, it's almost over!" Jiangchen stood in the air with a relaxed expression and cheered everyone on. "Wait for the heavenly tribulation! I'll cripple you!" Someone roared. The spiritual energy in his body was exhausted, and his face was pale as he fell from the sky. Immediately after, many people could not hold on anymore. Some fainted while others sprawled on the ground, unable to even move a finger. After all, this group of people fought with their lives on the line against the 9-destruction heavenly tribulation. At this moment, apart from Li Yuan and Ho Tao, the others could not move. Their spiritual energy was exhausted. "Brat! You're not done yet?" After more than 10 breaths, Ho Tao roared and his body trembled. Clearly, his spiritual energy was almost exhausted. Buzz! At the same time, Li Yuan's saint's decree shattered and turned into a misty rain that dissipated in the air. "It's over!" At this moment, Jiangchen shouted softly and saw that the tribulation cloud above his head had already disappeared. This time, he transcended 3 9-destruction heavenly tribulations in one go and successfully condensed his second spirit. And his Tao seed had even reached stage 9. After transcending the heavenly tribulation, Jiangchen did not stop at all. He rushed to Elder Qing's side and licked his face, asking with a smile, "Elder Qing, you protect me, right?" Elder Qing glanced at Jiangchen speechlessly. Without another word, he grabbed Jiangchen's shoulder and flew out of the city rapidly. Elder Qing was very clear that after what Jiangchen did, everyone here would probably hate Jiangchen to death. They probably even had the intention to kill Jiangchen. As for Elder Qing, it was impossible for him to stop so many people by himself. Right now, they could only retreat first. Ho Tao and the others naturally wanted to chase after them. However, they had exhausted too much spirit energy previously, and could not catch up to Elder Qing at all. "Brat! You're dead meat," Ho Tao said coldly. However, Li Yuan frowned and said, "The Pavilion Master said that if he's willing to nod his head and join Heaven and Earth Pavilion, the Pavilion Master will take him in as a personal disciple." "Heaven and Earth Pavilion's Pavilion Master?" Ho Tao was shocked. If that was the case, then Jiangchen really could not be touched casually. "Thank you, everyone!" At the same time, Jiangchen's voice came from outside the city with a mocking tone. Chapter 284. The Young Desolate Association had been a good one, but Jiangchen had ruined it completely. The group of big shots almost collapsed. Even Ho Tao and Li Yuan were trembling all over, their spiritual energy depleted. The contestants witnessed everything with their own eyes. They were afraid that Jiangchen would use the lightning guiding talisman to deal with them. "The competition will continue as usual." Half a day later, Ho Tao and Li Yuan finished resting and announced the continuation of the competition. At the same time, they sent people out of the city to ask Elder Qing to bring Jiangchen back. They also promised not to pursue the matter. "Elder Qing, will they really let me go?" Outside the heavenly desolate city, Jiangchen looked worried. Beside him, old Qing had an indifferent expression as he smiled and said, "It's impossible for them to let you off. The relationship between you and the Martial Pavilion has always been irreconcilable. Even without today's incident, the Martial Pavilion would not let you off." "Then I won't go to Tianhuang City," Jiangchen said. Given Ho Tao's strength, even Elder Qing couldn't stop him if he wanted to attack Jiangchen. If he went back now, it would be like sending a lamb to the tiger's den. However, Elder Qing shook his head and smiled. It's fine. Don't worry about a mere hotel. Oh? Jiang Chun was surprised. Looking at Elder Qing's calm and confident expression, he couldn't help but smile. He knew that since Elder Qing was so confident, someone from the Billowing Waves Academy must have come. In that case, who would be able to come to this place at this very moment? Apart from Ancestor Qing, no one else could. After a dozen breaths, when Elder Qing and Jiang Chun returned to the City Lord's manor, the competition had already ended. After all, the previous battle was already nearing its end. Now, it was just the end. After this battle, the top 26 would be decided. I should have entered the top 10. No! I should have entered the top 3. Huang Jiuchong didn't leave. He stood on the spectator stand with a terrible expression. He didn't expect to lose to Jiang Qin. Even everyone in the Young Desolation meeting didn't expect it, let alone Huang Jiuchong. Jiang Qin! You're dead! You almost destroyed the heavenly desolate city and almost implicated us in the 9 destruction heavenly tribulation. Do you know how many people you've offended? Someone shouted angrily, and killing intent appeared in his eyes. Humph! When the Young Desolate Convention is over, I'll teach you a good lesson. So what if you are from the Wave Academy? Let's see who can protect you. At this moment, the upper echelons of various sects and family forces were shouting furiously. They were truly enraged. If it weren't for the fact that a group of big shots had joined forces to resist the 9 destructions heavenly tribulation, most of them would have died in it. Even the disciples of their sects would all perish in battle. So you're blaming me? Jiang Chun snapped. If Huang Jiuchong didn't mock me, would I have made a move? If I don't make a move, will the heavenly tribulation descend? How can you blame me for this? If you want to blame someone, blame a 9th layer emperor. When these words came out, the expressions of the group of people could not help becoming strange. Some people felt that what Jiang Chun said was very reasonable, but some people didn't think so. However, one thing was for sure. This group of people, including Ho Tao, did not dare to blame a 9th layer emperor. After all, Huang Jiuchong was the prince of the humanoid dragon tribe. He was the prince. Blame him? Wouldn't that be blaming the entire humanoid dragon tribe? Blame the future emperor of the humanoid dragon tribe. It's my fault. However, to everyone's surprise, Huang Jiuchong spoke up and took the blame. He still looked arrogant, but his expression was solemn as he said, If I knew that he had a heavenly tribulation, I wouldn't have mocked him, and I wouldn't have let the 9 destructions heavenly tribulation descend on Tianhuang City. What's going on? Has Huang Jiuchong's personality changed? Huang Jiuchong, are you scared of him? Are you helping Jiang Chun take the blame? Many people shouted. I, Huang Jiuchong, dare to take responsibility for my actions. I can be arrogant and I can let it go. Huang Jiuchong raised his eyebrows and looked at the people who were questioning and shouting at him. He raised his eyebrows and said, What? Can't I, Huang Jiuchong, do you think I can't do it? As soon as he said that, the group of people immediately shut up. At the same time, Pang Ming, who was standing next to Huang Jiuchong, took a step forward. The smile on his face disappeared, and he squinted his eyes and said coldly, Whatever my prince says goes. It's fine if you don't understand, but if you do, you'll have to ask if the humanoid dragon tribe agrees to it. Damn it! You're bullying us. F***CK. Do you think the humanoid dragon tribe is so great? Stop talking. The humanoid dragon tribe is so great that we can't afford to offend them. Everyone cursed in their hearts, but no one dared to say a word. At this moment, Ho Tao announced that they would rest for half a day so that the remaining participants could recuperate. Half an hour later, while everyone was recuperating, a bridge made of starlight crossed the sky from the other side of the sky to the city governor's mansion. Then, a boy in a green Taoist robe slowly walked on the bridge. He walked slowly, but he was very fast. In just 3 breaths' time, he walked from the sky to the sky above the city governor's mansion. The wasteland role has been decided. The boy ignored everyone and waved his hand. A silk book hung in the sky. The silk book was enlarged rapidly, and the divine light and light were dazzling. Names were listed on it. The first place is Tian Shui from the Sifang Divine Institute? No way! The second place is Morning Wine? The third place is Dao Gui? At this moment, the entire place was in an uproar. This was because many geniuses who were favored did not make it into the top 10 of the Wasteland roll. Moreover, none of the disciples from the Martial Pavilion and the Heaven and Earth Pavilion made it into the top 10 of the Wasteland roll. Moreover, the Sifang Divine Institute, which was ranked last among the top 10 academies, made it into the top 10. At the same time, Mu Xingyun from the Burning Sky Academy was ranked 4th. Mu Xingyun is here! Jiang Chun looked at the roll and his heart tightened. To be honest, Jiang Chun was not afraid of the powerful seniors. After all, Elder Qing and the others were there to protect him. However, he was wary of Mu Xingyun. Mu Xingyun was proficient in the art of assassination and possessed the Shadow Dao spirit. He was born to be the king of assassins. Moreover, Jiang Chun and Mu Xingyun were enemies who would fight to the death. Now Mu Xingyun was here, but Jiang Chun could not find him. Jiang Chun was worried that Mu Xingyun would plot against him. Impossible! How can I be ranked 11th? Huang Jiuchong was furious. His eyes were bloodshot as he stared at the Wasteland roll. His name was on the 11th place of the Wasteland roll. To an ordinary person, it was a great honor to be on the Wasteland roll. To be in the top 50 or 30 was enough to be proud of one's generation. However, to Huang Jiuchong, it was a disgrace to not be in the top 10. What does that mean? Suddenly, someone was puzzled. He pointed at the 10th place on the Wasteland roll and asked, Boy, what does that mean? I'm not sure. The Heavenly Master made a draft of the Wasteland roll. How would I know what it means? The boy shook his head. He was only there to announce the Wasteland roll. Chapter 285. At that moment, Jiang Chun was also confused. He looked at his name on the 10th position of the Desolation board. However, there was a question mark behind his name. Each of the 100 people on the Desolate list had a name, but Jiang Chen's name had a question mark behind it. What? Are you doubting this Divine King's strength? Since the Desolation board is out, there is no need to continue the competition. Ho Tao frowned and was confused. This was because the previous Desolation board was released after the Young Desolation meeting. Furthermore, it was released by the Celestial Master of the Tianji Pavilion. However, this time, before the Young Desolation meeting ended, the Celestial Master of the Tianji Pavilion released the Desolation board. Could it be that there was a hidden reason behind this? I am not convinced. I am not convinced either. At that moment, a few geniuses stood out and looked at the rankings on the Desolation board. Anger flashed in their eyes. All geniuses and demons had their own pride and confidence. When their results did not meet their expectations, they would naturally explode. These geniuses had powerful sects behind them. Naturally, they had the confidence to express their dissatisfaction. What's there to be dissatisfied about? Ho Tao said coldly. Are you not convinced that we are hosting the Young Desolation meeting? Or are you not convinced that the Desolation board released by the Celestial Master of the Tianji Pavilion? As soon as he said that, the dissatisfied youths were speechless. They returned to their elders. This was because everyone knew that Ho Tao rarely got angry. He rarely spoke to others in such a tone. Furthermore, disagreeing with Ho Tao meant disagreeing with the Martial Pavilion. Who would dare to do so? Other than that, no one dared to disobey the Tianji Pavilion. The Tianji Pavilion was an ancient and mysterious inheritance. It was said that the Tianji Pavilion could predict all the heavenly secrets in the world. They could peek into the mysteries of the Great Way. They were unfathomable. Furthermore, the Tianji Pavilion had an extremely high status and prestige in the entire godless continent. As such, who dared to disobey? Only a few dared to stand out and say that they were not convinced. look at their elders. Who dared to say anything? With the desolation bored out, the young desolation meeting ended. Some were happy while others were sad. Of course, those who made it into the top 100 were the true geniuses of the barren state. Furthermore, they could all enter the desolate god's dojo. As for Jiangqin, he was already very satisfied. After all, from the very beginning, Jiangqin knew that it would be very difficult for him to become the champion. His cultivation was too low. Without using forbidden techniques, it was impossible to defeat those elite sky prides. Long Dade was the main reason he had defeated Huang Jiuzhong. If Long Dade hadn't scared off the Triceratops, Jiangqin probably wouldn't have been able to defeat Huang Jiuzhong. After all, the higher one's cultivation was, the more obvious the difference between each level would be. With Jiangqin's venerable realm cultivation, it was really difficult for him to fight against those top heaven realm geniuses. However, the premise was that Jiangqin didn't want to risk his life. If they fought with their lives on the line, it would be hard to say. Just as I guessed, Tianxue will be ranked first. Jiangqin spoke in a light voice. He had long expected this result. At the same time, Jiangqin was also very curious as to how the old heavenly master of the divination pavilion had deduced this result. Jiangqin knew that Tianxue had the guidance of the Empress, which was why he was so sure that Tianxue would become the champion. And what did the old heavenly master of the divination pavilion rely on? Those in the top 100 will stay in Tianhuang City. 3 days later, at the Desolation God's training ground, Ho Tao said. After he finished speaking, half of the people in the governor's mansion had left. After all, most of them didn't make it into the top 100. There was nothing for them to do if they stayed. However, there were still quite a few people who stayed. All of them had a strange look on their faces. It was as if they had realized that something was about to happen. Aren't we leaving? Jiangqin asked. Aren't we going back to the inn? We can't leave, Elder Qing said softly. The martial pavilion is about to make a move. Boom! As soon as he finished speaking, an extremely terrifying aura exploded from Ho Tao's body. A ray of mysterious light descended from the sky and poured onto his body. There seemed to be scriptures flickering in the mysterious light. There was also an ancient and obscure chanting sound. This was the light of a sage. And Ho Tao was a sage realm expert. 10 Ghost successor, the desolation gathering is over. It's time for you to be on your way, Ho Tao said coldly. He looked at Jianglu, who had disguised himself in the crowd. He raised his hand and slashed out a ray of light. Everyone below a sage was an ant. The power of a sage could destroy mountains and rivers with a drop of blood, and cut the sun and moon with a strand of hair. When a sage was angry, millions of corpses would fall, and blood and bones would form mountains. Jianglu also knew about the power of a sage. Therefore, when he saw the ray of light shooting towards him, he didn't resist at all. However, just as the ray of light was about to land on Jianglu, an ordinary-looking middle-aged man suddenly appeared in front of Jianglu. Bang! In the next moment, accompanied by a muffled sound, the ray of light shattered 3 inches in front of the man and turned into nothingness. At the same time, the man raised his head with a smile. He looked at Ho Tao in the air and said, Deputy Pavilion Master Ho Tao, long time no see. It's really you! The samurai ghost! Ho Tao's eyes narrowed, and his expression was extremely solemn. That's one of the 10 ghosts, the samurai ghost? Jiangqin asked. Yes, the samurai ghost. Elder Qing nodded. The pinnacle of martial arts, a martial sage! The samurai ghost! Today, this desolation city will be your burial place. Li Yuan raised his eyebrows. It was obvious that he was on the martial pavilion's side. However, right after he said those words, a white-haired woman appeared out of thin air like a celestial being. She gracefully landed beside the samurai. One of the 10 ghosts, Shu Ghost. Shu Ghost is here too. At this moment, everyone exclaimed, and their hearts trembled with fear. The 10 ghosts were existences that stood at the peak of the sage realm. Today, 2 of them had appeared at once, Fight! We're not afraid of you! Li Yuan shouted and looked at Shu Ghost. I've long heard that Shu Ghost spells are unparalleled in the world and are known as the #1 spell among the sages. Today I, Li Yuan, would like to challenge you. Yo! Little brother, you're not worthy to fight with me, Shu Ghost said with a smile, looking a little licentious. However, everyone knew that Shu Ghost was the most ferocious among the 10 ghosts. She killed without batting an eyelid. Her pair of hands that looked like water were stained with endless blood. Today is really lively. At this moment, a black shadow appeared beside Ho Tao. This person was surrounded by a layer of black mist, and there was a burst of cold killing intent. His eyes were like an eagle's. After glancing at the samurai ghost and Shu Ghost, his gaze fell on Jiangchen. Then, let's settle this together today, the black shadow said. The other vice pavilion master of the martial pavilion, Shadowless. Killing Sage. Shadowless. Oh my God! 2 of the vice pavilion masters of the martial pavilion have appeared today! Everyone exclaimed, and they secretly thought that this desolation city would be overturned today. After all, there were already 5 sages. Moreover, they were all top-notch sages. Chapter 286. Under the glittering jewel-seeking heaven of the martial pavilion, there were countless deputy pavilion masters, but every one of them was a saint. There were even rumors that a few deputy pavilion masters were powerful enough to challenge the world and were about to become gods. Now, 2 deputy pavilion masters had arrived at the martial pavilion headquarters. At the same time, 2 of the 10 ghosts had arrived. It seemed that today's incident was going to stir up the barren state. How long has it been since the barren state was so lively? Elder Qing said softly. He looked up at Juing and smiled. Junior brother Juing, long time no see. Can we have a spar? What? Junior brother? Elder Qing's junior brother? Could it be, he's ancestor Qing's last disciple? At this moment, everyone was shocked. No one had expected Juing to have such an identity. The world only knew the deputy pavilion master of the martial pavilion, Saint Killing Juing, but no one knew who his master was or what his name was. But now, with Elder Qing's words, Ju Ying's identity was revealed. Someone recalled something. Back then, there was a son of the Qing Kong clan who was expelled from the clan. It was rumored that the person who was expelled was killed by ancestor Qing himself. But who would have thought that the person who was expelled not only did not die, but also became a saint-killing saint and the deputy pavilion master of the martial pavilion? Qing Kong I, my good senior brother! My good brother! Ju Ying's voice was mixed with complicated emotions, but as he spoke, his voice became colder and colder. I should have crippled you, you traitor, back then. Qing Kong I was also agitated. He glared at Ju Ying angrily. You killed your father and your son. Is there anyone in this world that you don't dare to kill? Kill those who should be killed. This is my Tao, Ju Ying said coldly. Moreover, the Qing Kong clan did not agree with the trend and refused to submit to the martial pavilion. If this continues, the Qing Kong clan will be destroyed sooner or later. My choice was only to give the Qing Kong clan a chance to live. What wrong have I done? Ju Ying almost roared. However, Elder Qing did not want to say anything more. He rose into the air and went straight into the clouds. Ju Ying followed closely behind. Within a few breaths, there were explosions in the air. At the same time, Ho Tao formed a hand seal, and a barrier and array formation erupted, trapping Jiangchen in place. Jiangchen was completely powerless against the sage's barrier and array formation. It was not that he did not know how to break it, but Jiangchen's strength was not enough to fight against a sage. Just you wait. After I deal with these 2 ghosts, I'll come and kill you, Ho Tao said coldly. As soon as he finished speaking, he rushed into the clouds. The samurai didn't say anything else. Instead, he rushed towards Ho Tao. Next, Elder Ghost and Li Yuan both made their moves and also rushed into the clouds. They didn't fight in the heavenly desolate city because they knew that as saints, if they fought in the heavenly desolate city, all the creatures in the city would be killed by the aftershocks. Boss! Master! At this time, Jianglu, Baifeng Yu, and the rest rushed to Jiang Chen's side. Their eyes were filled with worry. However, Jiang Chen was calm. He sat on the ground and said with a smile, "As long as Elder Qing doesn't die, I won't die. But you're trapped here. If the Martial Pavilion sends more experts here, who will block them for you?" Jianglu said worriedly. "Only 2 of the 10 ghosts came. Now they are fighting fiercely with Li Yuan and Ho Tao. They can't help you. In this world there's nothing that I, Bai Jiangye, can help." Suddenly, a loud voice came from afar. Within a few breaths, Bai Fengyu's grandfather, Bai Jiangye, arrived here. Without saying anything, he raised his hand and was about to break the barrier and array formation on Jiang Chen. Whoosh! However, before his hand landed, a sword ray pierced through the air and went straight for the back of Bai Jiangye's head. "Who's that?" Bai Jiangye reacted quickly and threw a punch behind him. Before he could break the array and barrier for Jiang Chen, he rushed toward the southwest direction. "One of the 10 halls, the Hall Master of Yama Hall, King of Hell." In the southwest direction, King of Hell's voice came, followed by Ji Chongyang's voice. "Grandpa!" Bai Fengyu was shocked, and tears appeared in her eyes. Everyone knew that Bai Jiangye was the previous city governor of White Emperor City, and was extremely powerful. However, they didn't know that Bai Jiangye had been seriously injured and his cultivation was no longer at its peak. Bai Jiangye's current strength was not even at the Sage Realm. King of Hell and Ji Chongyang were both palace masters of the Martial Pavilion's 10 halls. When the 2 of them joined forces, they were invincible below the Sage Realm. If that was the case, Bai Jiangye's fate would most likely be grim. However, Bai Jiangye still went. This was because Jiang Chen had turned Bai Fengyu's yin energy into yin energy, and saved her life. Now, this old man knew that this trip was dangerous, but he still came. He was here to repay his life. Martial Pavilion's First Minister, Sun Yen. Martial Pavilion's Second Minister, Su Bing. At this moment, 2 more voices came from afar. Then, a man and a woman flew across the sky and landed in Tianhuang City. Su Bing and Sun Yen. 2 sages. The 2 most powerful ministers of the Martial Pavilion. At this moment, everyone in Tianhuang City was shocked. They thought that the appearance of 5 sages was already the limit, and would be enough to turn the barren state upside down. However, who would have thought that 2 more sages would come? "I'm Qin Kong. May I ask if the 2 of you will fight with me?" In the sky, above the clouds, Elder Qing roared angrily. He knew that no one below could protect Jiang Chen, so he wanted to fight 3 sages at once. "Old man, I'll kill you first. It won't be too late to kill these 2 guys later. Anyway, these 2 guys won't be able to escape." Sun Yen and Su Bing raised their eyebrows and formed a seal to trap Jiang Lu. Then, they rushed into the clouds. Elder Qing. At this moment, Jiang Chen was anxious. He could no longer stay calm. Although he had seen all kinds of people and experienced all kinds of things in his previous life, his heart was in a mess now. One person, for him, risked his life to fight 3 sages at the age of white hair. How could Jiang Chen's heart not be moved? "I'm Qin Kong. If I can't stay young forever, then I'll die." Elder Qing's loud roar came from above the clouds. On the other hand, Jiang Chen's eyes were bloodshot, and his hands were already forming a seal. Jiang Chen couldn't watch Elder Qing die. He decided to use a forbidden art, even if he would die under the wrath of heaven. "Kid, I know you've mastered many forbidden arts. Do you think the Martial Pavilion isn't prepared?" However, before Jiang Chen could use the forbidden art, an old man with a walking stick suddenly appeared. He pointed his finger and stabbed the walking stick into the ground. Buzz! Accompanied by a loud buzz, an obscure aura spread out. The surrounding chi of heaven and earth, and even the power in Jiang Chen's body, were sealed. Even the ever-changing heavenly lamp couldn't be used. Absolute suppression of strength. Absolute control of the situation. A forbidden art master? Jiang Chen's eyes narrowed. He didn't expect there to be someone in the martial pavilion. Moreover, it was a Sage Realm forbidden art master. As long as this taboo practitioner was there, all of Jiang Chen's methods were forbidden. Unless Jiang Chen's cultivation reached the Sage Realm and could forcefully break through the restriction, Jiang Chen wouldn't be able to move at all. Chapter 287. Bai Jianye came to repay Bai Fingyu's kindness with his life. Emperor Bai came for Bai Fingyu's heart. He knew his daughter's intentions. If Jiang Chen died, Bai Fingyu would not be able to live either. And Bai Fingyu was Emperor Bai's everything. He was willing to become enemies with the martial pavilion to protect that world for his daughter. And that world was Jiang Chen. Emperor Bai, it seems like you have lived long enough, the forbidden art master said coldly. As he blinked his eyes, runes flashed like stars and shot towards Emperor Bai. Let's fight outside the heavens. Emperor Bai did not accept the challenge. He rushed up and crossed the white clouds in the sky, arriving at the heavens beyond the heavens. The forbidden art master did not hesitate. He knew that today's matter had been blown out of proportion. Only battle. Only life and death. Boom! Boom! Above the clouds, there were continuous explosions. Holy light scattered down, and blood poured down like rain. A drop of a sage's blood could fill the sea. A drop of a sage's blood was like pouring rain. At this moment, the entire Tianhuang city was surrounded by heavy rain. But it was rainbows with divine light. Raindrops could penetrate stone, but it nourished living beings. After all, the essence contained in a drop of a sage's blood was too terrifying. Even an ordinary blade of grass could become a spiritual grass after being bathed in the blood of a saint. It could even gain sentience and become a living creature. The heavens are broken! Suddenly, someone cried out in surprise. The clouds in the sky had all scattered. Everyone saw Li Yuan and Xu Gui facing each other. The two of them had not made a move until now. Obviously, they were afraid of each other. On the other side, Qin Kong the First was covered in blood. Half of his body was missing. He looked too miserable. If he was an ordinary person, he would have died long ago. His opponents, Zhu Ying, Su Bing, and Sun Yan, were not any better. Zhu Ying had lost both her arms and a leg. She was relying on her spiritual power to stand. Su Bing's abdomen was pierced, his dantian was half destroyed, and his cultivation was more than half destroyed. Sun Yan was slightly better, but his heart was shattered. However, for a sage, the heart was no longer important. If the heart was shattered, it could be reforged. In ancient times, there were sages who were reborn with a drop of blood. Qin Kong-yi, this is the end of your life, Sun Yan said coldly. The sharp sword in his hand emitted a boundless sword light as it pierced straight towards Elder Qin. There was nothing fancy about this sword move. It was simple, but it was also the most deadly move. Elder Qin stood where he was. At that moment, he looked down at Jiang Chen. His face was covered with blood, but the corners of his mouth were curled up slightly. There was reluctance and expectation in his eyes. It was as if he was bidding farewell to Jiang Chen. No! Elder Qin! Jiang Chen's eyes were bloodshot as he watched the sword beam land in front of Elder Qin. However, in the next moment, that sword ray suddenly disappeared. At the same time, a young man was striding over from the horizon in the direction of the Surge Academy. His entire body flickered with divine light. When he walked, he was like a giant sun. Stars flickered and coiled around him, while the ancient and obscure chanting of scriptures resounded in the surroundings. I am Qin Kong Confucian of the Qin Kong clan. Please enlighten me. The young man spoke softly. His voice was refined, like that of a scholar. His speed was very slow. It took him a full 30 breaths to walk from the horizon to the sky above Tianhuang City. And for a sage, the ends of the world were just a blink of an eye. However, in these 30 breaths, Zhu Ying, Su Bing, and Sun Yan didn't dare to move at all. Their bodies were trembling, and their pupils were constricted. Their eyes were filled with fear. Especially Zhu Ying. When he saw Qin Kong Confucian, his forehead was covered in cold sweat. He couldn't hold on any longer and was about to kneel on the ground. Patriarch! The pillar of the Surge Academy, the patriarch of the Qin Kong clan, Qin Kong Confucian. This old man is still alive? The legendary figure of the barren state! Exclamations and clamors shook the sky. There were even people who retreated, afraid of being involved in this battle. There were even people who soared into the sky and fled thousands of miles away. Everyone knows that Qin Kong Confucian is like a scholar, but they don't know that a scholar hides a murderous heart. Someone sighed. They remembered that when Qin Kong Confucian dominated the barren state, he was the famous blood-hand scholar. His reputation was built on his path of fighting. He killed his way out. It was also because of Qin Kong Confucian that the Qin Kong clan could survive until now. It was also because of Qin Kong Confucian that the Qin Kong clan dared to challenge any sect, any force, or family. Back then I expelled you but spared your life. I thought you would repent, but I didn't expect you to sink deeper and deeper. At this moment, Qin Kong Confucian came to Elder Qing's side, but his eyes were fixed on Zhu Ying. Now, since you don't repent, there is no place for you in this world, Qin Kong Confucian said softly. The blue sky Confucian scholar whispered. As his eyes opened and closed, the space around Zhu Ying cracked like a mirror, shattering into pieces. Even Zhu Ying's physical body collapsed, and his soul and divine soul exploded. Bang! With a muffled sound, Zhu Ying died completely like a cluster of gorgeous fireworks. The killing saint of a generation, the Martial Pavilion's deputy pavilion master, had fallen. Don't talk to me about Lin Lang Wentian. At this moment, Qin Kong Confucian looked at Su Bing and Sun Yan. As if he knew what they would say, he spoke first. Lin Lang Wentian is in the 9th Forbidden Land and can't even protect himself. And the Martial Pavilion still dares to do this without Lin Lang Wentian? When these words came out, Su Bing and Sun Yan trembled even more violently. It was because, just as Qin Kong Confucian said, the Martial Pavilion's strongest person, Lin Lang Wentian, was in the 9th Forbidden Land and couldn't even protect himself. Whether he could come out alive was a problem. With Qin Kong Confucian's strength, unless a few grand elders of the Martial Pavilion took action, no one in the Martial Pavilion could compete with Qin Kong Confucian. After a moment of silence, Sun Yan gathered his courage and asked, May I ask, why must you protect him? Then let me ask, why must the dignified Martial Pavilion kill him? Qin Kong Confucian asked. Hearing this, Sun Yan was stunned and didn't know how to answer for a moment. Thinking about it carefully, the Martial Pavilion seemed to want to kill Jiang Chen only because Jiang Chen had crippled one of Lin Lang Wentian's illegitimate sons. It was just a small matter, but now, it had caused a saint to come out and fight. If Lin Lang Wentian was here, he wouldn't have done this, Qin Kong Confucian said. Go back. From now on, there will be no Martial Pavilion in the barren state. Senior, what do you mean? Sun Yan asked. Since I've come out, the Qin Kong clan has no way out. From now on, in the barren state, other than the 10 great academies, the Qin Kong clan will have the final say, Qin Kong Confucian said. As for the Martial Pavilion, it will be removed from the barren state. Chapter 288. The appearance of the blue sky Confucian scholar represented a kind of attitude. He did not need to make a move because no one present was his match. He only needed to express his intentions. And his intentions did not need anyone's approval. He only cared about himself and the Blue Sky clan. Remove the Martial Pavilion from the barren state. Ancestor Qing, I'm afraid you can't do that, right? Sun Yan said in a low voice. We can't make the decision on this matter, but if Ancestor Qing insists, the Grand Elders of the Martial Pavilion will definitely not sit idly by. I'm invincible below the immortal realm. 1 for 1 above the immortal realm, the Blue Sky Confucian scholar said softly. If they want to make a move, then 1-for-1. I dare to trade my life, but do they dare? This, 1-for-1 above the immortal realm. What level has Ancestor Qing's cultivation reached? He's definitely still a saint, but his combat strength has probably surpassed the scope of a saint. Everyone was moved and guessed in their hearts. They wondered if the Grand Elders of the Martial Pavilion would make a move. Go back, all of you! The blue sky Confucian scholar waved his hand and looked around. It would be a pity if the beautiful rivers and mountains collapsed. I'm already so old, and I want to see more scenery so that I won't regret it in the future. When Sun Yan and Su Bing heard this, they only silently glanced at the blue sky Confucian scholar, then turned and left. Even the people in the distance who were fighting fiercely retreated one after another. Just one person, Annihilation Shadow, and all the saints retreated. I'm invincible below the immortal realm. As expected of Ancestor Qing. After today, the barren state will be unified. At this moment, everyone had a premonition that the barren state would change greatly in the future. The blue sky Confucian scholar had appeared, and his combat strength was heaven-defying. He dared to say such words in front of so many people. However, there were also people who thought that although the barren state was the weakest of the 7 states, the 10 great academies were all in the barren state. If the Blue Sky clan wanted to unify the barren state, would the 10 great academies agree? And the Heaven and Earth Pavilion, which was inextricably linked with the Martial Pavilion, would they watch the Martial Pavilion be removed from the barren state? The Blue Sky Confucian scholar is not invincible in the barren state. That's right. From what I know, the Pavilion Master of Heaven and Earth Pavilion has the ability to fight against it. Which dean in the 10 great academies doesn't have such strength? The Blue Sky clan wants to unify the barren state? Dream on! However, at this moment, the Blue Sky Confucian scholar was as calm and tranquil as that scholar. He ignored everyone and didn't even look at Elder Qing. He sighed softly and then disappeared from this place. Bai Jiangye and Emperor Bai did not return either. They left directly. The samurai and shaman ghosts returned, but after undoing the formations and barriers on Jiangchen and Jianglu, they left with Jianglu. In the end, only Elder Qing, Jiangchen, and a few others were left. As for the surrounding people, they had already retreated 10,000 miles away the moment the Blue Sky Confucian scholar appeared. Everything is under control. At this moment, Elder Qing was standing on one leg. Half of his body was missing, but he was very calm and confident. He looked like an expert. Jiangchen was grateful, but he couldn't help but say, "You almost died. Brat! Don't you know how to chat?" Elder Qing pretended to be angry and scolded. Then, he suddenly laughed and said, "Yes, I almost died. I haven't fought for anyone before. Will there be in the future?" Jiangchen asked with a smile. "In the future? Probably," Elder Qing said softly. "Do you know what this battle means?" Jiangchen was stunned. He really didn't know what this battle meant. On the surface, it meant that the Blue Sky clan and the Martial Pavilion had shed all pretense of cordiality. But in reality, Jiangchen didn't know what the real meaning was. "It means the future," Elder Qing said softly. Elder Qing said softly, "The future of the Blue Sky clan depends on you, including the Wave Institute." "Depends on me?" Jiangchen was puzzled. Was it so serious? Elder Qing didn't explain anything. After recuperating and rebuilding his body for half a day, he left with Jiangchen and the others. As for Bai Fengyu, he also left and was escorted to White Sovereign City. At this point, the Young Desolate Meet was considered to have come to an end. But the Young Desolate Meet was over, and the Desolate God training ground was about to open. A huge collision was about to happen. Because, in the 7 states, the Desolate State had the Young Desolate Meet, and the other states also had similar feasts. And those who could enter the top 100 in such feasts were qualified to enter the Desolate God training ground. This meant that there would be a total of 700 people entering the Desolate God training ground with 100 people from each state. And these 700 people would be the strongest group of Heaven's prides in the 7 states. At that time, it would be a true gathering of heaven's prides. Qingzu? After returning from Tianhuang City and entering his cave abode, Jiangchen saw Qingzu. He seemed to have been waiting here for a long time. Jiangchen, from the Jiang family of Qinchuan. He was the young master of the Jiang family. Later, because of the Jiang family's grand elder usurping power, he was expelled from the Jiang family and exiled to the Qianzuan sect. After that, he rose to prominence. Am I right? Qingzu said softly. His voice was calm and there was no trace of emotion. Jiangchen squinted. His pupils suddenly contracted. He had realized something was wrong. However, Jiangchen did not say anything and merely nodded. I just can't figure out how a piece of trash rose to prominence. Moreover, the speed of his rise is heaven-defying. Qingzu frowned and said, Perhaps I should go to the Divine Secrets Pavilion and find the old Heavenly Master to divine some things about you. Why do you need to know so much about my matters? This time, Jiangchen could not remain calm and said in a low voice, Everyone has their own secrets. If you want to know my secrets, you have to pay the price. And this price is something you can't afford. Can't afford? Why can't I afford? Qingzu chuckled and then sighed. For a person who is about to die, what price can I not afford? Jiangchen frowned and looked at Qingzu, who was like a teenager. He could not believe that Qingzu was about to die. I'm invincible below the immortal state, and I'll exchange one for one above the immortal state. How could such an expert die so easily? I've lived for 6,000 years. My cultivation base is accumulated over time. Qingzu looked at Jiangchen meaningfully and said, I still remember that 3,000 years ago, there was also a person called Jiangchen. At that time, I was just a small cultivator, and the Qingkong clan was not as strong as it is now. What are you trying to say? Jiangchen's expression froze as he stared at Qingzu. Is the Jiangchen from 3,000 years ago you? Qingzu asked. This time, a glint appeared in Qingzu's eyes. In his eyes there were shadows of the 9 palaces and 8 trigrams floating. He was deducing Jiangchen's past and future. He was peeping at the secrets of heaven. Peeping at the secrets of heaven is a heaven-defying thing. If it's light, you'll be injured. If it's serious, you'll die. Jiangchen sighed softly. Stop deducing. I'll tell you. Speak. Qingzu said softly. I am Tianqin. Jiangchen looked serious and said, Are you satisfied now? Boom! The moment Qingzu said the 2 words, a golden thunderbolt fell from the clear sky and headed straight for Jiangchen's cave abode. You're tuning into the Phoenix Nights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.